If you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, and our invocation tonight will be by Councilmember Aspenleiter. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which is liberty. Amen. Tony, if you would, please call the roll.
Councilmember Shaw. Here. Gulick. Neese.
Present.
Owen.
Here.
Rogers. Kennedy.
Here.
Aspenleiter. Tidswell. Boyette. Rupsis. Mayor Cole.
Here. Our first order of business, our minutes, Council. The minutes from September 22nd, Councilmember Neese had some questions about that, which he posed to Denise, who's not available today. So we'll put those off until our next business meeting, and but we still have the minutes from September 8th. Are there any comments or a motion relating to the minutes from September 8, 2025? Councilmember Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the minutes from September 8th, 2025 as read.
Great. Second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion? Seeing none, if in favor of the motion for approval of minutes from December 8, 2025 as drafted, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Council courtesies this evening. Do we have any? No council courtesies? Very good. We'll move on to proclamations. We do have a proclamation. It's not on your agenda, but it's in recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the state of Montana recognizes through its highest law, the state constitution and Article 10, the distinct and unique cultural heritage of American Indians, and is committed to its educational goals and to the preservation of Native culture and integrity. And whereas the city of Billings, as a self-governing municipal government operating pursuant to its charter and the laws of the state of Montana, embraces its responsibility to promote equality and the historical integrity of Indigenous people, especially the 13 tribes that together constitute approximately 7% of the population of the state of Montana. And whereas the state recognizes that Indigenous people are the original stewards from time immemorial of the land underlying the city of Billings, and that over the ages has been the homeland and traditional use area of the Crow, Northern Cheyenne, Sioux, Blackfeet, and other Native people in this region. And whereas the city recognizes the important contributions of Indigenous peoples, the region's rich Indigenous history, and the contemporary cultural, political, and economic influences that contribute to our diverse community. And whereas the city opposes any and all forms of oppression, including those directed toward Indigenous peoples who, through history, have been harmed by policies aimed at forced assimilation and cultural suppression. And whereas on this day, October 13, 2025, the city of Billings recognizes, commemorates, and celebrates the contributions and resilience of all Native peoples. Now, therefore, I, William Cole, Mayor of Billings, do hereby proclaim that the city of Billings supports the contributions of American Indians in our community, economy, and rich Western culture by observing and celebrating Indigenous people the second Monday of October. With that, on to council reports. Are there any council reports from organizations, groups that you serve on behalf of the city council members? Seeing no council reports. City administrator report. Chris, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yeah, just one item, Mayor and Council. So brief update relative to the animal control building. So still working towards the certificate of fitness from the Department of Environmental Quality. The cleaning firm arrived this afternoon, began their work. Once they finish their work later this week, we'll finish testing and hope to get that certificate from DEQ by the end of the month. So we continue to make slow but steady progress working with our partners at DEQ to get the facility back safe and operational. So thank you. Then I'm sorry, last thing I have, there was no ex parte communication that came in late this afternoon.
Very good, thank you. We'll now move on then to public comment on things that there won't be a public hearing on later. So tonight, that's items 1, our consent agenda, including all the subparts on item 1. And for anyone who needs a copy of the agenda, there should be one back by the door as you come in on that corner. So anyway, this is an opportunity for public comment on any of the items on our consent agenda. Also item 2, which are the Lucy Brown LB Loft project. And then lastly, item 5, which is the S-Bird South Billings Urban Renewal District proposed program for utility hookups. If anybody would like to comment on those 3 items, everything else, there'll be a public hearing later, and items not on our agenda, you'll have an opportunity to comment at the end of our meeting. So, Mr. Brooks.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. For the record, Dan Brooks with the Billings Chamber at 815 South 27th Street. I want to voice our support for agenda item number 2, the request for funds from CDBG and Home for the LB Lofts project. I was looking back at some of the discussion from last year. July of 2024 was the last presentation that you'd had on this. We'd come and supported. So I apologize. There's going to be a little bit of repetitiveness in my points here, but I want to make them no less. The first is that we just have a significant need for these affordable housing units. Last year, July 2024, there was a little over 7,000 on the waiting list at Homefront. Now there's a little over 8,000. So that need continues to grow. The 101 units of this development are significant. I had supported, wrote about, thought it was frankly pretty neat a few years back when City Council approved over 100 units in our downtown area with TIF funding. So I think this is pretty substantial, and I ask your support for this project. Secondly, this obviously comes with some significant safety benefits, namely the crime prevention through environmental design of having additional residential units and additional eyes on the streets in the area. I have not myself taken a look at the site plans, but I don't need to because Patty Webster and staff at Homefront have gone through our 5-day SEPTED training that was made available because of council's investment in 2023. So I wanted to also say thank you to that because it's continuing to lead to good outcomes. You had helped fund that training in 2023. We had not only city staff had come through that training, but Homefront and others that now have that eye for crime prevention in these new developments that are going to go into Billings. So for those reasons, the need for the additional supply and the safety benefits, we encourage your support. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any other public comment? I should have said before, we just asked that you tell us your name and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Are there any other public comment on items 1, 2, or 5? Any other public comment on items 1, 2, or 5 before I close the public comment period? No one's coming forward, so we will close the public comment period, move on to our consent agenda. Council, are there any separations from our consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, is there a motion relating to the, Councilmember Aspenleiter, would you like to make the motion to approve the consent agenda?
For the first time in 2 years, I would love to make that with no separations. I move to approve the items on the consent agenda as submitted with the exception, well, with no exceptions. Thanks. We even build it into the statement.
Councilmember Kennedy seconds the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, if in favor of the motion, approval of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next item up is on our, move on to our regular agenda, item number 2. Tony, would you read item number 2?
Item number 2, home and CDBG funding to Homeward and Homefront for construction of LB Lofts, affordable apartment housing. Community Development Board recommends approval.
Very good. Item number 2, Brenda Beckett's coming forward. And also Jordan.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and City Council members, I would like.
Oh, I
would like
apologize. Councilmember Rasmussen needs to recuse himself. Councilmember or Gulick,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Usually it's
I said
Councilmember
Rasmussen.
Aspenleiter,
Councilmember
but-
Gulick. Yes, have it.
Well, actually, it's coming up. I was just going to say I'll have to recuse myself from this item. My firm is the architect for the project.
Very good, thank you. Back to Brenda.
Right. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, I'd like to introduce you to our newest staff member. She joined our team in January. This is Jordan Langton, and she goes by Jay. She has a degree in business administration and 12 years experience in home lending and mortgage customer service. So we thought she'd be great for the Affordable Housing Development Program and First Time Homebuyer Program. So thanks.
Very good, well, welcome, Jordan. But you prefer Jay?
Either one is fine.
Either one, okay.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to present the LB Lofts Affordable Housing Development Project for funding approval.
Mayor, can you
Councilmember Neese?
pull up the mic so that
Yeah, Jay, if you would just point that right at your lips
Sure.
and keep it as close, yeah, otherwise it's hard for people to hear on television. Especially. Yes. We will take a minute and locate the PowerPoint. Very good, looks great.
Perfect. Oh, now I can't switch to the next slide. There we go. Maybe it worked on here.
Kevin broke it again.
Apparently.
All right. Project will be developed by Homeward and owned and operated by Homefront. Homefront will manage the property after construction is complete, and the project is located in the Billings Heights near the intersection of Sioux Lane and Twin Oaks Drive. The project is completing a total of 101 two-bedroom, two-bathroom affordable rental units. The project includes 6 home-assisted units. 38% of the total units that are constructed will serve households from 31 to 50% of the area median income, and the remaining 62% of these units will serve households from 51 to 80% of the area median income. The funding being sought is $1.4 million in home investment partnership funding and $145,000 in community development block grant funding. The total being requested is $1,545,000. The total project budget is just over $25 million, so the requested city assistance is just a very small portion of the total project budget. If approved, funding will be provided as a loan payable as cash flow reimbursement for project costs. The loan will be secured by a deed restriction, trust indenture, restrictive covenants, and a promissory note. And construction is expected to begin in May of 2026 and be completed by December of 2027 to begin renting. The city's legal department has reviewed the legal drafts for the agreements required for this project. The development agreement drafts that were attached to the agenda item have been updated to include the funding approval contingencies, and Wyeth did email that out to the mayor and council this afternoon. The Community Development Board recommends approval contingent upon the viability and usability of stored building materials and the commitment of funding from the project's other funding sources. And we do have Patty and Amber from Homefront, as well as Heather here from Homeward, to field questions and discuss the project further.
Very good. I'll just ask Patty if you or your staff have anything to add to Jordan's presentation. You're welcome to do so.
I have nothing to add, imagine that, but I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity, finally bringing this back to you all for approval of this funding, much needed housing, and we're super excited to get started. I have Heather here as well.
Hi there, Heather McMillan with Homeward out of Missoula. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on the project overall. Just to really appreciate your guys' patience with us. We were awarded tax credits at the end of last year, and then promptly put out a request for equity and lending and all of those pieces that go with tax credits right at the first of the year. And then with that change at the federal level, let's just say there was a bit of chaos. I know you guys have to navigate that as well, but we feel really comfortable at this point that the market has settled a bit, and that we're going to be able to get the project with the proposed timeline submitted to Jordan and the city to start this spring. And so there's just been some volatility that we've been navigating. These funds are critical gap financing for the project. We talked about timeline. Also, another update, we had put out the RFPs for general contractors' input on cost and overall viability. Middle of the summer, they were also very busy. So we've reissued that as of last week, and we already have a lot of positive feedback, and we're going to have a lot of interested parties in this type of project. So we're excited about that. We're also, another key piece that we think will help on the equity side of things is that we have the Towers project, Homeward project. We own Sage and Fraser Tower here in Billings, two senior projects, and we are looking in the next couple of weeks to find out about tax credits for those projects. And so between LB Lofts and the Towers, we'll think we can leverage equity investors for both projects. So we're using all our tricks in the bag to, navigate what is kind of a crazy world right now as far as people not needing tax credits and interest rates being high. And so we really feel like the proposed timeline that we have out there is really plausible. And I know there may be some questions about the viability of the units and any other things, so we're here to answer questions as needed. So thank you.
Very good. Council, questions for Patty, Heather, or Jordan? Councilmember Neese, you, Councilmember Boyack, Councilmember Rowan.
Thank you, Mayor. Patty, we've been hearing a lot from the residents asking questions about the units that are sitting there. I believe they're fenced off and things like that, but excuse me. Can you just kind of give some more information about these? My concern is they're going to be sitting there for quite another period of time over winter. This is the time of year you got to keep the mice out of the house. And so what are you doing to, one, keep them secure, to keep vagrants from moving in, but not just people vagrants, but also mice and rats and whatever else may be in those fields? Are you fumigating them or running any kind of pest control in there? Can you kind of explain how those are going to be taken care of until you start building?
We're not fumigating the field, I can tell you that. If we had any field to fumigate, it would be out on 24th and Woody, but.
Yeah, so they have been placed in a way that is sustainable through winter. That's why they're all kind of cockeyed so that the snow doesn't cause any significant load on any of the structures. And as far as pests or mice, we have 80 other units on that street, and we've never had a pest issue out there. And so right now, we don't have anything to address. If we have one that we're aware of, we become aware of one, we will address it. Probably in the individual pods themselves, set up some eradication of that sort. But right now there's a non-issue. We don't have a MICE.
Okay, so those units, the 80 units, are those units that you have people living in though, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's different than vacant units that are just sitting in the field with no people. You'll probably find that. So are you guys prepared that when you go to start unpacking some of these, I mean, are they covered? I mean, what's the,
Wrapped.
so they are wrapped, so the weather won't get to them and things like that. Okay.
We have cut out a L by the doors just so we can be going in and checking the units. We're going in and checking the units all the time. We've had only one neighbor in Twin Oaks that had a concern. I met him there over the weekend. He went in, we went in, and we looked at all the pods. He went up into the pods. I unlocked doors, and there are no people living there. There are no people living on the grounds, and yeah, we're looking at even another way to wrap other units. There were a few where the roofs look like they might need another wrap just for the winter. But keep in mind, these units are not where people are going to be living in. They're part of the construction material.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for clarifying the fact that no one's living there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Boyette. Councilor Rowan?
That was going to be my question. If you have 202 units, you would think some damage is going to be done over a course of time, a year, 2 or 3 years. What's the contingent if you lose 2 or 5, or is there any scenario where you say, well, you know, we can rebuild 2 or 3 of them, but we can't rebuild 50? I mean, what is the plan going forward just to make sure that these units are really what you need them to be?
It's a great question. We have a pretty healthy contingency, not only for that inevitability, but also a healthy contingency in the construction budget because of the volatility there. So we have resources built into the budget to help cover that inevitability. We know that when we start reusing the building pieces of those pods, that some will be in better condition than others. In fact, before they left North Dakota, some of them hadn't been wrapped the right way, and so we're well aware that there'll be a percentage that we'll need to do new replacement materials if needed. But again, keeping an eye on things, making sure that we're not getting pests, but also making sure everything stays dry from the time we got them and here until we can start constructing is critical. But we'll have contingency funds if necessary, and also plans in place if there's partial replacements of those pods.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilman Boyette. We also have 11 extra pods at the property, so there are more pods than what we need already.
Councilor Rowan and Councilor Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple quick questions. Patty, I have a few questions for you, but I actually wanted to start with Wyeth, if that's okay. And I just want to be Wyeth on this same thread that we're on right now. There's a note here in our staff memo that says that the funding is contingent on the viability of stored building materials, which is what we're all talking about. Are we performing that viability analysis, or is that a representation of the developer?
My understanding is that, here, you want to?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, that would be up to the developer.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure we weren't getting in the business of engineering. Okay, great, thanks. So Patty, I want to ask you just a couple questions about the project. I know here, again, throughout our memo, that there seems to be lots of sort of revisions and new documents and revisions and new documents. And of course, when you first presented this to the Heights Task Force 2 years ago, we thought we'd be done by now.
Yes, we did.
What happened? Have there been delays in the project? Have we slowed things down here locally? Can you kind of shed some light on why we're here?
I like to call it a comedy of, it's not a comedy of errors. It's just a comedy of all the things happening in the world right now. I can't even begin to say. Heather can answer some of these questions as well. She already spoke to the equity issue that we're already having. Putting out the RFP for the GC ahead of time does not work for the procurement that the city of Billings has. It works for the state. It works for our agency, which is also a public agency, but not for the city. So it's just been some things like that that just aren't aligning all the stars at the same time. We also, Heather spoke about the towers, but this project isn't funded with the towers, but it is a twin project for the tax credits, which is a very complicated project, and that's hard for people to understand. And so the city also had us decouple that, and I believe it was in August, made us submit another budget to show that decoupled, because the other project, that's a twin project, is in Laurel, and we didn't want any miscues that we were funding or that you all would be funding something in Laurel outside of the city limits. Okay.
The reason I ask the question is I think every one of us can express, we are constantly being asked by people in the community, by developers, by everybody, how do we get more affordable housing? How do we encourage development? How do we encourage infill? You ladies both are sophisticated developers. You do a ton of work here and around the state. And I just in good faith want to open up the conversation that if you see places where inadvertently city processes and procedures are slowing things down or discouraging affordable housing development, we need to know. We just need to have that conversation as partners. So I just want to open that door. You don't have to answer it now, but just to know that I think we're all hearing from the community that we need to do more and better. And so then on that same sort of note, one of the things that we hear a lot about is having enough tax base to support provision of basic services. And nonprofits don't pay property tax, but Homefront has a longstanding policy of paying a pilot to the city. Can you walk us through that and help us understand how these affordable housing units are still actually contributing to city services?
Sure. So back in 1973, the City of Billings and the Housing Authority of Billings entered into agreement, a pilot agreement that's a payment in lieu of taxes. So there's an actual calculated formula where based on the number, it's a percentage of the charged rents. I'm a firm believer that all of us should pay our own way. Normally with families that we're dealing with, lower income families, maybe have additional emergency services going to those properties. It's a great number. I would like to work with the city to actually pull. But I think that, you know, fire's still going there, right? Police are still going there. Ambulance is just going there. And so I think we should pay our own way.
And you do, right?
Yep.
And we'll continue to on these units as well?
Yes.
And I'll add, we also, on our Southern Lights property, did a payment in lieu with a homeward-owned property as well. We always pay all the SIDs and all the added pieces. That's never an exemption. It's really the state property tax piece. The payment in lieu is very helpful to be controlled and predictable versus what we all faced with our own homes over the last couple of years. The rents that we charge on our properties or Homefront's properties are fixed and low, and they only go up a little every year. And so for us, we can't just raise our rents to cover that volatility. And so that payment in lieu relationship that Homefront has established and our choice to do on our properties is that happy medium, because we know that we do demand on services and want to make sure that we are all contributing what we can.
Mayor, may I ask one more quick question?
Sure.
I noticed in the staff memo that the per unit cost here is measurably less than a recent private sector development. Can you help us understand how we got there?
We're just that good.
That's what I was looking for you.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to be.
I will speak to it a little more directly. The fact that we are doing shared walls, shared roofs, you know, aggregating these into 5-plexes and 6-plexes, and the way we're reusing those pods, we worked closely with High Plains. It's just the most efficient building size, and no elevators and kind of all the things we could do to really nail using these most effectively and doing density without harm, so to speak, with, you know, filling the whole site with single-family residents would be great, but we can't make those projects work. So the density here, making sure we could park it, and having shared walls and shared roofs, very helpful in that cost per unit. It's still high because building anything now is high, but that might explain why there might be a bit of a difference, those 5 and 6-plexes.
The parking was very helpful as well. Having reduced requirements for parking, that's a huge thing for development. So thank you.
Very
and
good.
I'm not
Thank
sure
you.
we addressed if the city is causing problems. Nobody at the city is causing problems at this point. In fact, Development Services was very instrumental in the review High Plains did early on for feasibility on the site. And Jordan was very patient with us as we navigated other pieces and then did that bifurcated budget so that there wasn't a subsidy question between county property and a city property. So that it's kind of like taking the Siamese twin and cutting it apart took a little longer. So it was more on our end, the delays getting back to her a really feasible budget, separating the two projects, even though they worked in tandem together.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. This is a fantastic project. I'm so excited that you're finally back to us, ready to move forward. I'm ready to make a motion, but I will defer to one of the council members from the Heights if they would like to do that, because this is in the Heights.
You have an invitation, and.
No, I'm going to make a motion if neither of you want.
Okay. I move to approve home and CDBG funding to Homeward and Homefront for construction of LB lofts, affordable apartment housing as recommended by the Community Development Board.
And
And I will
Councilmember
second
Bernice makes the second? Okay. I'm going to assume neither of you want to speak to your motion, and I'm going to,
I just want to echo Councilmember Shaw. This has been a long time coming. Thank you for your diligence and your innovation and creativity. We know there's more work ahead, but very, very excited for what this means.
okay, we have a motion on the floor. And Councilmember Shaw, anything before I give it to Councilmember Aspenler? Councilmember Aspenler and Councilmember Rupsis.
Sorry, I was slow to the gun with respect to asking a question, so I just have one more question if that's allowable.
Perfectly in order.
It says so.
Try again.
Green light's on. Should be. I think that's intentional. My question is around what's the risk here that the funding falls through? And how long are we committing to you to tie up home funds and CDBG funds that other projects in the city could use? When are you going to know that this goes or that this doesn't go? And what's our commitment to you on a timeline without, locking this up like we do with TIF dollars for projects for 5 years as they continue to try to make things work that struggle to work?
That's a wonderful question. The good news for you is that the state already has a ticking clock for us. With the tax credits and the award of last year, we need to start construction by the end of next year. There's timelines on delivery at the end of tax credits. It's pretty healthy, and it's a little shorter than what the home guidelines are. And home also requires us through our contracts that you guys see, those draft contracts, that'll hold our feet to the fire. Now, you asked a question about risk. We don't think the market has corrected itself that all the way, but it has also been long enough since the election and the changes in capital corporate tax rates and all the things that put the equity market on edge, and people were kind of holding back and not investing. And now they're going back in and investing. And so we've rewritten it, our deal. It's a little lower equity pricing. Interest rates are not stabilizing, but those are where the risk points are, really nailing down an equation that'll work. Patty mentioned it or alluded to it. We really need a general contractor on board now. We would like somebody that we can hire now to be ready to construct, but we'll bring them on to help us with the cost exercises of the materials and the structural systems that have been proposed and all of that to really understand the overall math. So really in the next probably 3 months are the most critical as far as getting it all to work. And then we have May of next year to start construction. What that means is that we have done all of our funding. It's all been secured. It's all dialed in, and we've closed the majority of the risk on the project. We won't break ground or spend $1 of city money until all that risk is beaten out, that we have everything in place and signed contracts. So there's many checks and balances, and I don't think it's bad to ask, but that we should come back and give updates as we go over the next 6 months. Is that right? 6-7 months until May. And if anything changes, we give you guys updates. Because again, we don't want to tie up the funds when they could be spent elsewhere. But I think there's a lot of struggling projects that are dealing with a lot of the pieces that I just talked about from viability standpoint.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Rosas.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, Patty, I think this might make you look even better. The staff memo says the $25 million project breaks down to 317 or so thousand per unit. Is that 25 million for the 79 units or for the whole 101? Because 25 million divided by 101 is actually 248,000. So I'm not sure if you did that memo or.
We did not do the memo.
And I believe Jordan was using the bifurcated budget, but I'll let you speak to that.
Yes. Yeah, because it's a total, they're using the tax credits and they accounted that for 22 of the units. And then our cost per unit is only figured the remaining 79. That's the cost per unit is.
But the whole 101 costs 25 million.
Yes.
Okay. Does that include the costs for the pods themselves?
Yes. Yes, and we've already paid for the pods.
Right.
Pods already paid for. We own the land, so we donated the land to the project. So
okay.
we're millions in already. It's gonna go.
But really, it's really only across the 101 units is really only 250,000 a unit. I say only.
I thought it was
as
like
a- right?
239.
Yeah, I get 248.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if it's ever confusing, but when you do a twinned project and a twinned is a 4% tax credit project and a 9, some of LB Lofts is a 9%, 22 of the units, and on the 4% side, there's 79 of those to make that 101. The 4% also has a project in Laurel included to give scale, so yeah, there's many ways to say this, so we're not trying to make it complicated, but that's how we could get this project to be feasible.
Well, thank you. It still seems like a heck of a lot per door. But you know, it's a lot better than what we're seeing in other places around the community. So thank you for doing it. Thank you for keeping after it, and let's get it done.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Council, any other discussion before we proceed to a vote on this item? Okay, motion is for approval consistent with the staff recommendation of item number 2. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously, with the exception of Councilmember Gulick, who recused himself and did not participate in the discussion or the vote. With that, well, thank you very much. Happy building.
Yes, thank you.
That completes item number 2, brings us to next item on the agenda, which is item number 3. Tony, would you read item number 3?
Item number 3, public hearing and first reading ordinance amending Billings, Montana City Code, Section 22-406, removal of snow, ice, etc. from sidewalks. Staff recommends approval.
Very good. Tina Hoger is our presenter. Tina.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. I do not have a PowerPoint for you tonight. You're welcome, Councilmember Aspenleiter. But I think we covered the majority of the discussion that we had back in August regarding 22-406. So you will have a red line version and a clean version in your packet. And I'm here to answer any questions or concerns.
Questions or concerns? Councilmember Kennedy.
Tina, I'm looking at your the version. It's 9C. Accumulation of impediments not removed as required by paragraph B may be removed under the direction of the city. And then the record will be on the cost and everything, and then it'll come back to the council. Can you just describe that process, and do you save it all up during the year and then bring it to us at a certain time? And then I have a follow-up question.
Councilmember Kennedy, Mayor and Council, to my knowledge, we've never done an assessment for snow removal. When we spoke at work session, I had checked with city clerk and there isn't even a resolution on file for that. I don't know that we've ever used this section of the code. However, the general opinion was to leave it in as an option. It would work similar to how we do weed assessments. So the same process. If we had to go out and take care of it, we would bill them and then assess it to their taxes, but we don't have anything currently in operation like that.
Then why did we leave it in?
As an option in the future, in case, you know, council in the future would want to go that route, if that's something that develops in the future as the community grows, that was the advice that we should leave it in.
Okay. My second piece on that, Mayor, is I'm going to vote against it. And I had talked about it earlier that there's a lot of times when the snow, they're clearing the streets and it's pushed back on the sidewalks. And I just don't want people to have a fear that if that happens and it's frozen and everything on their sidewalks, I see that you left this in, but there's still a fear out there that they're going to be charged for something. So I'd like it cleaned up, and I don't agree with this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councilmember Bernice.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina, when people have complained about snow being on the sidewalk, what's the process today? I mean, when you say you haven't charged anyone, do we actually as a city go out and clear the sidewalk for them? Have we ever had to do that?
No, we go out, Councilmember Bernice, Mayor and Council, we we send them, we hang a door hanger. There isn't even a letter because, I mean, it could melt within a few days. So we do the 24 hours after the accumulation stopped. We notify them that they need to clear their sidewalks. And to be honest, we have most compliance. We really do.
Okay, so those are the few that are not compliant. What do you do?
We could issue them a citation.
But you don't?
We could.
Right,
We
but-
haven't
right,
had
but
to.
Currently, you're not doing that, correct?
No, we haven't had to. Most of the time, people are complying.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Owen?
Tina, what's the process if someone is unexpectedly injured or, I mean, they're in the hospital or they're ill? Like, what are the ways for them to come back to the city and say, I understand my obligation, but there were these extenuating circumstances?
Sure. Councilmember Owen, Mayor and Council, we work with people no matter what. I mean, that's consistent in my division. If there's extenuating circumstances, we're obviously going to work with those folks. I wish we had a Snow Buddies program. Currently working, we do not. But we will work with them and we will try to give them extra time to do it.
And does the notice indicate that, the one that hangs on the door, like, please contact us to discuss, or if there were extenuating circumstances, here's how to appeal or whatever?
It absolutely tells them it's a 24-hour notice. We have our contact information on there and we ask them to contact us.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Other questions or discussion? If not, I'm going to ask for a motion on this. Oh, I apologize. This is a public hearing. You're right. Sorry. So if there aren't any other questions, we'll move to a public hearing. Yep, no other questions. Thank you, Tina. So item number 3 is a public hearing. This is the proposed changes to our city sidewalk impediments ordinance. If you'd like to comment, please come forward. We just ask that you tell us who you are and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment on item number 3? This is a public hearing. Any public comment on item number 3? Final call. Any public comment before we close the public comment period? No one's coming forward, so our public hearing is closed now. Back to council. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken testimony, I move to approve the first reading ordinance amending BMCC Section 22-406, removal of snow, etc., ice, etc., from sidewalks as recommended by staff.
Very good. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Neese. Councilmember Boyette or Neese, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Boyette.
We have the ordinance, even as she said, we haven't given citations to anyone. I think they're willing to work with people. I don't see this as a big issue being here. We just need it in case something happens down the road. We haven't done it, so let's have it in the books. If we don't need it, that's great.
Councilmember Neese?
Yeah, Mayor, I appreciate what the staff did as far as working with us on this ordinance, getting this thing really fine-tuned. It is a much better ordinance than it was. I think it'll take care of things better in the city. And so, and I echo what Councilmember Boyette said. It needs to be there, but our code enforcement division is a really good division where they work with people and try to make sure they resolve it without having to go to the hammer type of thing to try to really work with them to have it done. So thank you.
Very good. Any other discussion on the motion? Before we proceed to a vote? Okay, seeing no further discussion, the motion is for approval of item 3, consistent with the staff recommendation and the draft document in our staff report. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay.
Nay.
Voting in opposition, Councilmember Kennedy. All other council members voting in favor, the motion passes. That concludes item number 3, brings us to item number 4. I'm assuming we're going to have a joint presentation on both 4A, which is the annexation, and 4B, the zoning. We'll then proceed to have a joint public hearing on both the annexation and the zone change proposals. So with that, turn over to Hunter. And I also see the developers representative is in the audience, so we'll make sure they have an opportunity after Hunter for any questions or if they have comments as well.
Alrighty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. So this is annexation petition number 2504 and zone change 1070. This is a returning item from our last city council. So moving forward. So regarding the interconnectedness of the items tonight, just to give a brief explanation, zone change 1070 is regarding the zone change, a planned neighborhood development from agriculture to a P&D mixed use, and that is including within the zones for first neighborhood residential and 1, mixed residential and X1, corridor mixed use CMU1, and parks and open space zoning P1. We will also hear a annexation petition tonight, as well as a ward boundary ordinance. The zone change and annexation itself is going to be a joint public hearing, but they are going to require individual actions. And then for the ward boundary ordinance, that will require a hearing, but there's not going to be any special presentation for it. If the property were to be annexed, it is going to be placed into Ward 4. So starting with the annexation, this is the current exhibit of the annexation area in practice. It is an area approximately 54 acres, give or take, in size. It is currently lots 66A1 and 67A1 of the amended plat of lots 66A and 67A of Sunny Cove Fruit Farms. This is located between between Grand and Colton. So here is the current subject property and the limits of annexation. The areas in green are our Zone 1 limits of annexation area. So as you can see, this area is eligible to be annexed currently. This is the current vicinity map of the area to be annexed. As you can see on the map, this is already in an area of a lot of development. The larger white rectangle you can see near the center of the screen, that is the Albertsons that somewhat recently was erected. And here is the current zoning map of the area around the property that's going to be the subject of the annexation and zone change. So as I said previously it was, or currently it is Zone A for agriculture. It is surrounded by a variety of zoning uses. To the east, we have a subdivision that's majority N2 zoning. Along Grand Avenue, there is a mixture of zones, some predominantly corridor mixed use 2, as well as some NO and CMU1 zoning. To the south, there's also some public zoning, nearby school, and N3 zoning, so more residential development. So here is our current street side view of the property in question. So this is the property from Grand Avenue. Another view on Grand Avenue looking east. Same looking south across to Grand Avenue to the nearby residential neighborhood. So this is looking west on Grand Avenue. And another northwest view across the property from Grand Avenue. And then one more view across the street. So as is custom, the city of Billings takes a look at 7 annexation criteria as part of its determination as to whether to recommend approval. They are as follows. So 1, the area needs to be within Zone 1 or Zone 3 of the limits of annexation. This property was within Zone 1, as I demonstrated earlier. 2, the city will need to be able to provide adequate city services at a cost acceptable to the city within the future and mutually agreed to by the property owners requesting annexation in the city. We will be able to provide services through that. That is going to be handled through a subdivision improvement agreement for the Homestead Acres subdivision. That is going to be heard at a future city council meeting. I apologize for not amending the date from the previous presentation this date was prepared for. Condition number 3, or criteria number 3, any existing or proposed public improvements within the area will need to meet city standards. As said previously, any public improvements here are going to be built to city standards, and that is going to be further stipulated upon in the subdivision improvement agreement for the Homestead Acres minor subdivision. Criteria number 4, all the property rights within the area will need to sign a waiver of right to protest the creation of special improvement districts. As stated before, this is something that is included with the subdivision improvement agreement for the subdivision. Criteria number 5, all residential property owners within the area to be annexed must create or join an existing park maintenance district. This will be something that will be addressed as part of the future subdivisions. Currently, these are agricultural lots, so no park maintenance districts are going to be addressed as part of this annexation right now. So condition or criteria number 6, the residential properties densities planned for the development within the area to be annexed must meet an overall average minimum density of primary dwelling units per acre as per the City of Billings growth policy or similar planning documents. Going over this annexation and zone change, there is no residential land currently in part as part of this area being annexed, so that is not going to apply here, but it will apply to future subdivisions. And I'll demonstrate that a bit when going to the zoning. And criteria number 7, the proposed land use within the area to be annexed must conform to the goals of the adopted City of Billings growth policy. We have identified that the proposed annexation most strongly adheres to our strong neighborhoods as well as our prosperity and essential investments policy goals. So regarding the annexation in itself, staff is recommending to hold a public hearing on the annexation. Upon approval of the hearing, staff is recommending the city annex the petition property with the staff recommended conditions of approval in the resolution. Before we get on to that, I'm going to talk about zone change 1070. So, zone change 1070, as part of their annexation due to its size, the applicant is required to do a planned neighborhood development, a P&D. And as part of doing that P&D, they're required to bring in a mixture of zones, not just 1 or 2. And so as part of this, the applicant is requesting to go from agriculture to a mixture of N1, NX1, CMU1, and Parks and Open Space, P1 zoning districts. Looking at the adjacent properties, we felt that these mixture of uses is compatible with the zoning that's already around it. It meets the minimum requirements for the variety of densities that we ask for in the P&D portion of our zoning code. And then with this zone change, it opens up availability for any lots to the west to become another phase of infill and even more P&D connections to the city in the future. So here is the current zoning proposal for zone change 1070. As you can see, they are going for a variety of uses. Directly adjacent to Grand Avenue, they're going to have a CMU1 zoning, so that's our corridor mixed use, and that can allow for a mixture of commercial and residential uses. Immediately to the north after that, there is a NX1 zoning, and the NX1 zoning allows for densities between 1 dwelling unit per structure all the way up to 4 dwelling units per structure. So anything from a single family home to a quadplex. And then finally, the last residential zoning they're going to try for is the N1 zoning district, which is one of our more common ones, and that allows for single family homes and duplexes. They are also including some P1 zoning as is required by the P&D regulations. And as you may notice, on the western side of the CMU1 zone property, there is a 20-foot wide strip of P1 zoning. That is going to be a sort of private trail of sorts, to my understanding. And part of the reason that is there is currently the regulations do not explicitly allow for the CMU1 zoning to be directly adjacent to the agriculture zoning right next to it. So that P1, that 20-foot wide area of parkland is going to be used as a sort of a buffer yard between the city and the county for commercial to agricultural. So, much like with the annexation criteria, the city also takes a look at these 10 zone change criteria. The city looking at, we go over each of these points in greater detail in the staff report, but to summarize, we feel that this zone change application does meet all 10 of these zone change criteria. And therefore, the Zoning Commission is recommending approval and adoption of the findings of the 10 review criteria for Zone Change 1070. So, to briefly summarize, we feel that it is meeting the intent of the growth policy. It is meeting the intent of the standards of the P&D section of the zoning code, and the surrounding zoning designations are compatible with what they're requesting for interior. So with that, I am available to answer any questions. Before we go on that, there is one point I would like to bring up is regarding last time when we moved this item to this current meeting. The initial concern at that time of why we did that was alongside of this annexation and zone change, they are also going through a subdivision, which is going to have the SIA and carry the water for the annexation agreement. There were some concerns with the traffic impact statement that was submitted at the time. Since then, we have received a new TIS that Public Works is currently reviewing. It is the opinion of Public Works at this time that the contents of that met most of our concerns. There are a few outstanding things that we are currently taking a look at that perhaps the applicant could speak on a little more after me. But they should not have any bearing on the ability to approve or deny this zone change and annexation.
Very good. Thank you, Hunter. Council, do we have questions specifically for Hunter? I'll give, after we've had some questions, we'll give the developer and developer's representative opportunity to comment and also stand for questions, and then we'll have our joint public hearing. But now, questions for Hunter? Councilmember Brassmeyer, Councilmember Boyette?
Yeah, Hunter, thanks. The only thing that jumps out at me at this is that 20-foot strip of P1, and that's not the developer's fault. I mean, this is just a stupid part of our zoning regulations with respect to buffers versus agriculture, which won't be agriculture for long. Why isn't there a variance for this? Why are we doing this? I mean, I understand the conceptual trail idea, but we're going to have sidewalks and all of that stuff down Daybreak Drive too. So why are we doing this?
So, Councilor Aspen Leader, City Council and Mayor, A variance actually was a idea that was floated by the developer. The kind of options on the table at the time when they initially proposed is either they could ask for a variance and not have that strip in, or they could forego the variance and then just have that buffer in as part of this zoning. To my understanding, prior to the application of those two options, they elected to go with the buffer. Is my understanding.
And maybe this will be a question for the developer after the developer gets up, but I mean, I also understand why they didn't ask for a variance, because now you're going to pay a variance fee. You're going to have to prove hardship, which is also going to be complicated for something like this, which is also a ridiculous part of this process in our zoning code. And I mean, staff's recommendation likely was going to be no, because you can't prove hardship. And instead, then we end up with a 20-foot strip of public ground that's going to be nothing. Maybe it'll be a trail that never gets used by anybody, but it's wasted capital, and we're going to end up owning it in all likelihood as the city because it's P1. And so, you know, just wait.
Yeah.
This is a nonsensical part of this application, and it's there because of our zoning code, and it's there because our variance process for the zoning code for things like this also is nonsensical. So, I mean, I would have hoped that we would have seen a variance. This is something, in my opinion, that should not have even required a variance. It should have been able to be done administratively without, you know, extracting another fee and putting more cost on these projects. But this is a prime example of some of the problems that we have with the zoning code that we've theoretically fixed, but created more problems.
Okay, Councilor Boyer? And I'm sure the developer's representative will comment on that issue, in particular, whether there's going to be a trail or not. Councilor Boyer?
And that was going to be my question. 20 feet long by 12 acres, to me, it seems like a joke. Was there any other thought about the planned neighborhood development having a park other than this 20 feet wide, 20 acres long?
Yes, actually. It's a little hard to see on the map itself, but that kind of lime green square in between the N1 and Annex 1 zoning, that's the majority of the required parkland that is being included in here.
So do we have any other options other than doing this 20 feet wide? I mean, this does seem like a waste.
The other option would have had to have been the applicant request a variance to have the CMU1 zoning next to agricultural.
And that's all their options were?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up on that, Councilor Aspenleiter?
Yeah, and maybe this is a question for Wyeth or Anna, one of you two as the directors. I mean, can council just eliminate this without a variance and just make this go away? Is there legalities in the process from the application and the way this was noticed and all that kind of stuff? Because this is really nonsense.
And while you're coming up with that, just think about whether if that goes away and if it was counted toward their PD park requirement, does the size of the park then need to increase slightly? Any to wait too.
Yeah, so Councilmember Aspenleiter and Mayor and Council, I guess first that we've flagged this issue, and so we need to fix it in the code. I mean, that's pretty obvious with this situation. I think it was originally intended with some of the areas where you're adjacent to potentially like more permanent ag, and not in areas where you're going to see, development. So I think that's I know that's partly what the intent was originally, and that it's not, doesn't work in certain situations. So that clearly has to be fixed. I'm not aware, and maybe Gina can help. I'm not aware of, like, in terms of the council at this point, you'd be basically basically saying, well, the whole thing would be CMU1 versus that P1, I would expect. So you'd be modifying the action and the application at that point. So I guess I'd have to defer a little bit to legal on that in terms of making that change now. But I understand the interest in doing that. So.
And Gina, I don't know if you can comment. I mean, in theory, this is to protect the property owner to the west, and I don't know that we have the ability to just presume they have no objection. In all likelihood, they don't, but there's a reason it's there.
Mayor, Council, I apologize. If this had been brought to me prior to the meeting, I could have looked at that and been prepared for that question. If you want an answer from me tonight, I would need to take some time, go chat with Wyeth, and get back with you.
Okay, Councilor Aslan, I'd suggest we just let the developer comment, because they're the ones, we don't need to carry their water if they don't want us to, put it that way. So,
And-
Councilor Ashland.
And I guess the only comment I would make to that is, I mean, understanding all the other rules and whatnot, if the applicant comes back with an indication that we're going to try to fix this in code and wants to roll this back to CMU1, which I would presume that they would, I would hope that we could do this administratively without requiring them to apply for a zone change, paying the permit, going through this entire process and whatnot. And we could do this in some way, shape, or form administratively without wasting everybody's time and wasting people's money to do it, because this is our problem in the code. It's not a developer's problem.
Okay, so we'll continue, and I didn't see anything down here, so Councilor Kennedy? Oh, and I apologize, Councilor Boyd, had we gone to you? Okay, Councilor Kennedy?
I just, a question. We have the green section there, the light green or section at the top. It has these dotted lines in. Is that the possibility of the roads, and are they connecting and lined up with the subdivision to the right? Just a question.
Yes, this is a sort of preliminary road layout that they are intending to do long term. That is going to line up with the adjacent subdivision. To kind of clarify, the only immediate subdivision that is currently in the works is going to be a subdivision for the area that is intending to be rezoned to CMU1. The area to the north, so all the green space, I'll call it, the residential area. That is going to go through its own subdivision at a future date that we have not received a formal application of. So I can only tell you that the provisional road layout here is a basic outline.
Just the piece down there at the bottom, the pink.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the area down in the pink is currently what's in the works. Is they were going to have an access off a Grand that connects to, that kind of runs the side of it and connects to the Annex 1 area.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Nothing else for Hunter before we, Councilor Renese?
I'm sorry, not for Hunter.
Nothing for Hunter?
No.
Okay, I was going to invite up the developer.
Oh, that's fine.
Councilor Rowan has something for Hunter?
Mayor, just very quickly, yeah, Hunter, you've been on board now doing this for a while, and I continue to be frustrated that we don't get good feedback from the school district on the impacts of some of these developments. Any insights as to what it will take to get actual sort of input from the district on the impacts of these facilities? Do we need to be sending our requests for input to a different portion of the district?
I do send requests for input from the school districts. They tend to speak more on the subdivisions themselves. And I believe they did get comments to us on the subdivision itself. I apologize, I don't have the stats in front of me right now. But generally, the extent of their comments when it comes to any of these projects is they generally contain it to, here's what our current capacity is for this school that would be in this area, and here's the maximum capacity. Off the top of my head, I couldn't speak to this development, but generally the trend I see most of the time for a lot of these schools, especially in the ones in the West End, is most of the schools are at or near capacity. And outside of any further comments, I don't get anything more with that. I can certainly request in the future that if they could provide more input as to any comments or fears or concerns that they have regarding future projects like this, I'd be glad to do that.
That would be helpful for me. I would also ask, if you don't mind, and run this by Wyeth and Anna to make sure they're okay too, but I would love to know if they have planned capacity improvements in the area, just so that we have a sense of what they're thinking and how we're thinking about it together.
Very good.
Wyeth, did you?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council and Councilmember Owen. Just to add, so this question and issue continues to challenge us. Our planning board actually has been asking about this as well, and we've invited a representative from School District 2 to, actually they're coming to our planning board meeting tomorrow night to talk about capacity and redistricting and that such, because there's been a lot of questions at the planning board level about this as well. So I would say that we're going to get some more information, and happy to either, share that obviously, and also if there was a way to have that same conversation with you all, obviously that would be great. But we are going to hear from one of the administrators over there about how they're managing this, because this question comes up and we don't, the big picture, I guess, is what we don't get. So that they're going to provide more of that to our board.
That's really helpful, Wyeth. Do you think, based on your experience, that we should be including, I don't know, the superintendent or the school board or some different source inside the district to get more input as we consider these decisions?
Councilmember Owen and Mayor and Council, we do coordinate at the administrative level there
Yeah.
about how they want us to send
Okay.
information. So yeah, I don't know how else, and we do have part of what's helped, and helped with this conversation tomorrow is we have a representative, an ex officio on the planning board who's from the district, not the person who's the expert in this area, but we were able to facilitate that. But yeah, we're set up and directed from the administration there of how we're supposed to send in the comment or the request for comments.
Thanks.
Very good. Councilor Bernice?
Yeah, I have a question for the chief. Hopple.
Question for Chief Hopple. Could you come forward, Chief?
Is just coming, just to let you know, I just sent an email both to the Chief Hopple and the Chief of Police, Rich St. John's, and asked him the questions because we have in our packet what we typically see, the standard answer of, if you keep building, we need some commensurate resources to help, service these areas. And so just in summary, and I'll ask Chief to reply to his side, I didn't hear back from the Chief of Police, but my concern is, we've been improving a lot of these subdivisions, and we hear of a lot of issues about how Rimrock Road has just impacted the entire place from the west to the downtown. And now we're doing this on Grand Avenue. We're having the same type of results, and we're not really building new fire stations. We're not putting new fires people on, or we don't look at our budget. We don't have the resources to actually even do that. And so what I asked the chief and both of them to respond to is, if we keep doing this, at what point, are we there to the point we need to stop? And in essence, he says, increasing density and call volume lessens the ability to deploy resources effectively. So it's going to, every time we put another house on and a neighborhood in, it's going to cause, more responses to that area, and it's going to decrease the amount of time they have to go to somewhere else because they're out, doing other things. And we've been doing that, and we have a lot of building that we've approved that's coming online that's going to impact that even further. So we haven't put anything in the bank to compensate for how we're going to pay for all these new public resources that we're doing. So Chief, if you can just explain, you've seen us approve a lot of these subdivisions, massive subdivisions, big ones like this one. How is this going to impact your budget? Because in our current budget climate we have right now, we're not going to be adding more resources in the next 3, maybe 4 years unless we go to public safety mill levy, which is not going to, and I don't see happening in the future here. If we are static on our budget, where do you see once all these subdivisions get built out, how is the response going to impact the community as far as public safety, and in particular this division here if it's built out?
Thank you, Councilmember Neese and Mayor and City Council. First and foremost, I genuinely support growth within the community. It's, the biggest question that came about was, in each of these reviews that goes through, the fire department puts a pretty generic statement on each of these about how it will affect the services out in these areas. So really, I just want to talk about that and what we really mean by that. We do understand that we currently serve these areas already through the Billings Urban Fire Service area through our contract with them. But with that, we also know that when they're in that area, they're less likely to be developed because they don't have the services. So there is some concern when these areas start to come into the city limits, what our ability to provide services with them will be. We're constantly, looking at that and what that looks like. We look at this subdivision here. It currently exists within 0.37 miles from a current fire station. We do have more concern as we go further south into more of what we would call Station 5's area, or the potential for a future Station 9. But, you know, long story short, anytime we increase density in any area, not really much increased the land that we're taking in, but we increase density, that obviously brings traffic, it brings people, and it brings buildings, all things that we have to serve. So, you know, of course, it is a concern to us, so we do want to have a plan going forward. I can't answer the financial piece of what that would bring in once it gets developed. I would have to defer that to our finance department. But it is something, you know, that does impact what we do. So we try to keep a close watch on it. This one didn't come on the radar just for the reasons of where it is, but I do guarantee you that as we look at all of these coming through, it does get more concerning, you know, from a fire and response profile. You know, it just simply saying that we already respond to it is not really a good answer that I should provide to you. And also, you know, there's properties that maybe respond to further out than this one. So all I can do is guarantee you that we continue to evaluate this, but please just know that as we ask for further development in these areas, you'll probably see me come back forward with an ask to try to protect these properties in the way that we would like to protect them, and they deserve to be protected. Not only do they pull our resources further out, it affects how we currently serve residents that are within the city if we don't invest in some public safety as it goes further out, i.e. Station 9, which is in our CIP for 2029, but obviously that's not funded, so we would have to see what financial impact this brings into the city and stay on top of it and see my face more often up here as we start to do that. So I hope that answers a little bit of what you asked, but I just want to address what that stamp means when we put that on any of these annexation requests.
I think it does help. And Chief, you said this is within 0.37 miles, and so what's the response time on that?
Well, in our BUFSA, we've broken it down different areas. So within the BUFSA, the average response time is 8 minutes. Average response time within the city limit area that Station 7 doesn't service, or outside of Station 7's area, is 8 minutes. Within the city limits, it's anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. But, you know, this isn't black and white. I will throw that out there. I do understand that, you know, anytime you build a fire station, if we build it in Station 9's area, you're going to see a lot of rapid development. Anytime you build a fire station, a school, like we just talked about with schools, that's where you really see the rapid development. So we do understand the impact that will make as well, but response times are key to us. I mean, you know, the quicker we can get there with what we're dealing with today, the better. But that would be a quick response time to this subdivision. I can't speak the same for others that may be further south.
So normal is average 8, but you think this is going to meet within the city's, would you say 3 to 6 or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Our city administrator, Chris, you wanted to comment on that 30,000 foot level, and maybe as part of your answer, you could just confirm that we do not have a cost of services study to present next week. It's something we've talked about for literally 8 years, and it goes to this question, you know, to what extent is new development covering the costs? And that's data information we simply don't have a very good handle on. But anyway, Chris, that was my comment. Go ahead.
No, thank you. I think, and again, it's, you know, in building a city, it's complex with all the various departments and divisions and services. Although I would tell you, when thinking about fire, to a degree, draw a polygon around each station, and when you make a commitment that you're going to build that station, staff that station, equip that station, there's an argument now you want everything inside that polygon to fill in, because that's who's paying, that's its service area. So as the chief said, it definitely they all work together. But if you look at Station 7's general polygon of service area, there's a lot of vacant land. And that vacant land, that, you know, those tax dollars aren't helping to offset the costs that are fully being incurred by the city, by the rest of the citizens. So it's, as Chief and I chatted a little bit today, and new Chief, we'll see how, Matt's different approach to this, but I would tell you, thinking of Station 9, and in this case, having the decision made to build Station 7, once that decision is made to put that station in, I would think there should be a pretty solid commitment to see development fill in and around it. Otherwise, the rest of the city is paying for that disproportionately. So,
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate your input. Why don't we invite our developer or developers representative or both, if they've got comments. You've heard some of the discussion, and anything else that you want to present for us is nice.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is John Halverson. I'm a planner with Sandbell and agent of the applicant. And you guys know I don't go anywhere with fewer than 40 slides. So, but I'm going to keep it short. I understand we have 10 minutes all in between me and my colleagues, some experts in traffic and some things that we're discussing this evening. Does that work? Yes. Okay, so just going to talk about where we are in the entitlement process, what the context is in the area, what is in this application, and then some of the things we talked about earlier in the discussion. Y'all know where we are in the process, that there's subdivision approval pending in the works that will have to be approved before any dirt flies out here. Where we are at the intersection of 54th and Grand Avenue there, 56th, 54th and Grand Avenue, in that hub that's there. A lot of growth happening in that area. This growth over the last 20 years, this area over the last 20 years absorbed 30% of the county's growth. Rapid growth in this area, and transportation investments to match. What you see in those blue markings there are recent intersection and segment improvements to our transportation corridor. Those solid red lines are projects that are in the 5-year CIP that are funded, and additional projects that are in the long-range CIP unscheduled. So a lot of transportation investment happening in this area. You can also see that, as Hunter said, we are in the Zone 1 of the annexation boundaries, considered for very proximate annexation. And since 2001, when I was in 7th grade at Will James, this has been contemplated as a node on the West End, as a center of more intense activity and more intense development out here on the West End. There's our site. You can see these kind of islands of development happening around it, like we talked about, these annexation areas that have to be served. Some county development happening there, some public lands, which we'll talk about. To our south is the Ben Steele, right? Public investment there at Ben Steele that drives a lot of investment. A lot of low density residential that the city serves. Some slightly more dense NX1, which is included in our application. Some multifamily, and then the commercial node that you see there at the intersection of 54th and Grand, commercial. And in that, right in there behind Albertsons is, as was mentioned, Fire Station 7, which is less than a half mile from our application area. So as you can see there, that's how it fits in with the medley of zoning out there. And here's our area, and you can see that our zones are very compatible with the N2 that is to the east of us. The P&D regulations do require that we show a street network that complies with The subdivision regulations, we're not committed to it at this point, but it's just to show kind of a feasibility of what our zoning, how our zoning lines up with what the subdivision regulations require, which is connections to the east, 2 continuing those, and then 3 additional connections to the west, and 1 to the north. So in that N1 zone, working our way from north to south here, N1, we can have single family or duplexes in there. Any residential zoning right in the state now does allow both single family and duplex. In the NX1, that's that darker green area, we can do anything that can happen in N1 can happen in NX1 in terms of single family and duplex, but also moving up into allowable uses of townhomes in groups of 4 or fourplexes as the maximum of what would be allowed in that NX1 zone. So providing some more attainable housing right there close to Ben Steel, where more people are going to be able to, as was discussed, in that catchment area of that public facility, putting more people in there so that we get a better ROI on that public investment. The CMU1 that borders Grand Avenue at the south of the application area can host any one of these kinds of development. Our client is considering storage facilities, as is pictured there, but probably not the typical storage facility that we're used to seeing. And that is a result of the CMU1 zone, which has special requirements on any storage use that would be developed there, including building to the corner, having windows on the ground floor, active uses on the ground floor, a lot of rules that really ensure that a storage use is going to be a good neighbor and is going to contribute to a corridor like this at that location. Now, we did discuss with staff and it was at our we did apply for that variance. There seems to be some confusion about the variance application being rescinded. We can work that out, I'm sure. But we presented this at the zoning commission that the zoning regulations require that any CMU1 and ag be separated by a right-of-way or an alley. But in working through this with staff in our pre-application meeting, an alley is not going to be approvable at that location. We're not going to get access onto Grand Avenue at that location. So this was okay, how do we meet code, was to supply this 20-foot P1 buffer. But we said, the difference between a P1 buffer and a B3 type landscaping buffer is 10 feet. So we suggested in our variance that we just have a type B3 landscaping buffer, requires trees along that boundary, all kinds of landscaping within a 10-foot rather than a 20-foot slice through there. So that's what we've requested. That's the variance that we've requested, and we can work out whatever confusion is going on there procedurally. In terms of the CMU1 allowing storage within there, it has a series of form-based requirements that say, your exterior doors serving individual units can't face the street without screening or being behind other structures. So everything highlighted in pink there, you would not be allowable to see from the street. In addition to that, it requires that security fencing is behind landscape areas, and that landscaping would be required as you see it there in the green dashed lines, that buffers of landscaping, trees at certain intervals as we move through there. Also requires that streets not be blocked, public rights of way not be blocked, and that individual units accessed from outdoors can't be within 100 feet. So there are a lot of requirements on storage as a use within this CMU1 zone that guarantee that it is going to be a good neighbor and is going to contribute to the node that is forming there at 56, 54th and Grand. And also that it can't be larger than 3 acres. That's part of the development in the subdivision. So that's kind of my overview of that. And for more detail, I'm going to give it up to Rick Luthold.
Thank you, John. Mayor Cole, members of the council, Rick Luthold with Sandbell here, here representing the client. And frankly, I'm here because of my gray hair tonight. I am, again, one of the few folks like Bill who's been around for, this is 23 years that the Cottonwood Development Agreement was entered into. And Bill raised that question on September 24th with regard to this project. I happened to actually at that time, there were a lot of plans being rewritten and updated, and John Eisen and I, John from JGA and I worked on the West Billings plan together. That was some of the basis of information that Bill used in crafting the Cottonwood Development Agreement, and stormwater reports that were done and that kind of thing. And Bill and I often actually would talk about development and how it was occurring on the West End. So that's what brings me here this evening on behalf of our client, Brian Harvey, and his project as he moves forward. I just want to speak to that briefly for you folks. You know, I respect Mayor Cole and his fundamental principles that he brought the Cottonwood Park Development Agreement forward for Don and Betsy Forbes. That is an admirable thing. We need more big parks in town, like Pioneer Park, like Centennial Park, like Veterans Park. And that was the foundation of their gift to the city. There were a lot of things in play at that time. There was a school potentially proposed out there. How do we jointly use these properties? How do we carry them forward? How do we give some life to this thing as we go forward? And again, I respect those things that occurred there. On behalf of Brian, he is a longtime resident of the city of Billings, and he likes to see those kinds of things for the city also, is a supporter of those kinds of things. What is at issue here is that we also want to see things that are fair and equitable. And on behalf of Brian, I have to say here this evening that for 23 years, this agreement has been in place. There have been lots of developments annexed and occurring in and around the park that have happened without a specific negotiated additional contribution having been made. This project is going to contribute with regard to its park dedication. It's something on the order of $160,000 will be contributed to the Parks Department as this project develops out. And actually, some of this P1 stuff, we may be able to squeeze down a little bit and get a little more cash into that for carrying that forward. So we do believe in the project under the regulations from a fair and equitable standpoint. There's a cash contribution that's occurring right now. We do think it's a great project for this nodal area. Given a few of the things that have been brought up tonight, Councilmember Aspenleiter mentioned the 20 feet. I fully well agree, and we would like to pursue a variance there. And that is one of those challenges that we had to deal with around up there, and work that through from that standpoint. But I would like to ask this council this evening to respectfully approve the annexation and the zone change that go forward with this. We do still have a subdivision process that goes forward. Mr. Harvey is agreeable to continuing dialogue and discussions with regard to the area here. He's going to be a neighbor in the area and continues to want to see things done that benefit the neighborhood, but want to see that be done, again, on a fair and equitable standpoint. He is here this evening along with his real estate representative, George Warmer. And I do have DJ Clark with me here tonight. He represents us with regard to the traffic. In order to respect your time here this evening, I know the traffic study was mentioned. I believe we have addressed virtually all of the questions that the city traffic engineer had with regard to that. There is one item with regard to an easement that is currently being addressed. I think some folks are here to speak to that during the public hearing process, but I would just offer them for any questions and myself for any questions that the council or that you might have, Mayor Cole, at this point.
Very good. We'll open up for public hearing, but before we do that, council, any other questions for the developers representatives? Councilor Bernice?
Yeah, I think, Mayor, you're going to wonder to ask this question was that 20 feet of P1, did that come out of the P1 in the center of the development?
It is part of the entire, so under the P&D process, we're required to provide 2% of
so
public,
part of the 2%.
Public area. And we're actually, what's shown here is actually closer to about 5.5 or 6%. That's why I say cash contribution could adjust a little bit if we put a few more lots in there, or if this 20 feet goes back into the mix from a calculation standpoint, there are things that are still at play
if the
there,
20
but
feet
it
goes
is part
away-
of what's
If
the
the 20 feet
number
goes
there.
away, you don't have to adjust the P1 in the center of the.
I would not have to adjust, we would not have to adjust the P1 in the center in order to
Okay.
meet the requirements. That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Reed.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions for Councilor Rowan?
Thank you, Mayor. Rick, I might have missed this in the staff memo. I saw lots of timelines for construction of the commercial piece and the road improvements. I didn't see the actual, when do you expect all these units to be in?
This is like any other land development project in the city of Billings, and the economy, the markets, as we know, that there's a lot of things happening on a national basis right now. The developer, Mr. Harvey, is interested in moving forward immediately with his commercial development. That is his specialty. He's working with a couple of folks with regard to development of the residential properties. And again, his real estate representatives here tonight could speak to absorption. I mean, that's what we're talking about under the current mortgage interest rate scenarios and that kind of thing, what the absorption is. The properties, the lot sizes that are here should be very marketable. Again, it's close to the Albertsons, it's close to a school, it's close to a park that we want to see developed, it's close to a fire department, all the good things that we talked about that came out of the West Billings plan. This is one of those nodes that's occurring, but that'll be driven by external factors.
Okay, I guess what I was just trying to drive at with some clarity is there's at least possibility that some of the road improvements to Grand Avenue will be made prior to full build out of the residential piece.
For Grand Avenue, so Grand Avenue, anything that this project does would probably be, and I'm just speaking out loud here, typically on something like this where we have an arterial out there, we do cash in lieu of contributions that go towards that development. As I believe council probably knows, there is a project that's going to be coming out for request for proposals on this here. We understand yet this year with regard to the redevelopment of Grand Avenue for a pretty significant section of this out here, develop it out to full width and intersection improvements and all that kind of thing. So that timing wise should be occurring parallel to the development that's occurring here.
And then lastly, help us understand why there is so much demand for storage units. Why is that making sense out here? Why do we see them popping up all over the community?
Come out and look in my garage.
Is it really that? Is it consumption? Is it housing churn? What is it?
There's as I've read the business journals and that kind of thing, there's a couple of things. One is we are a consumption-based society, so we have a lot of stuff, and we run out of places to put it. The other thing is because of the prices of homes and the prices of affordable housing and that kind of thing is pushing a lot of folks into smaller homes or into apartments. I have a niece who's in an apartment, and those kinds of folks come into an apartment. They might have where do I put my ski gear during the summertime? Where do I keep my raft during the wintertime and that kind of thing? And so folks like that will pick up storage units and that kind of thing. Again, Mr. Harvey's here this evening. He has a tremendous business, and frankly, I use some of his facilities to park an RV in when it's off season and that kind of thing. So it continues to be one of the things that our society needs a lot of.
Okay, thanks.
Very good. Thank you. I don't see any other questions, Rick, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This is a public hearing, and in this case, it's a joint public hearing, meaning that we'll have an opportunity for public comment on both item 4A, which is the annexation of this property, and also 4B, which is the proposed zone change. So we'll open up the public hearing and invite anybody to come forward. Just ask that you tell us who you are, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. So is there any public comment? Mike?
Councilman and Mayor, thank you. Mike Seppala, and I'm here representing Western Security Bank. Actually here just to make a clarification on part of the traffic issue, I think. We are currently in negotiation with Ty Schmeckel, who owns the lot just to the, we own the lot just to the east of this subdivision, and Ty owns the lot just to the south of us, or to the north of us. So that easement is actually not part of the development or the PUD that we're in right now. but that easement is intended to go across, and Ty and I are in negotiation. Verbally, we have a deal. We just don't have it all put together in writing. So Hawk Creek will extend across. The bank is committed to build that street out. And then Ty and I are working on the rest of the little details there. So I know that's been something that's been brought up on this subdivision as far as the arterial going into that area. So I just wanted to make a clarification on that. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Other public comments, either on annexation or the zone change? And go ahead and make a little line if there's others there that we know you're ready to go.
Hi there. My name is Brian Redfern. I'm at 5523 Clear Sky Drive. I'm in the subdivision that is just south of this new proposed annexation. Forgive me, this is my first kind of civic engagement with City Hall.
You're doing great.
I haven't had anything that's really affected me like this. So I also represent our HOA. I'm in the Daybreak subdivision there. We have 73 homes in there. I'm not here in that official capacity tonight, but I have had numerous conversations with residents in our subdivision, things like that. I think there's a lot of concern about that corridor being zoned as it is. We've heard a lot of different things going in there. We've heard a gas station going in there. We've heard storage units. I guess it'd be nice to get some clarification, but I would urge the city to understand exactly what we're zoning in there, because I don't think any of us want neon lights in our backyard and things like that from a Holiday gas station that's open 24 hours a day, if that's truly what's going in there. We worry about our property values. We also worry about the traffic. I don't know where these traffic studies are coming from, but I can tell you when I leave for work at 28 to take my daughter to daycare and go to work, we can hardly get out of our subdivision. So I don't know where they're coming up with the idea that this is going to get fixed. I've heard there's ideas of a roundabout going down by the school, but nothing that I've heard is really going to fix the traffic issue that we already have. And it's going to turn into the new Rimrock if anyone's ever traveled that in the morning or in the evening. I want people to be able to develop. I'm not naive. When we moved out there, we knew that things were going to get developed around us. But, you know, we went through this whole rigmarole with the den and the bar, everything else, which when we told we moved out there, we were going to get, you know, a strip mall maybe with a dance studio or hair salons, things like that, that would close at 5 o'clock at night and we wouldn't have traffic issues and things. And we have 2 bars, a casino, and a liquor store out there now that has morphed into something that they told us we would never see. So again, I'm all for development. I want people to be able to do those things. But I am concerned about the corridor that they are saying for mixed use. And forgive me, I'm not familiar with the codes. As I said, I'm fairly new to this. But as a subdivision, we are concerned about that. At least I am. And like I said, I'm not here in a capacity of speaking for the residents there, but I am just speaking for myself. And I know there are others that are concerned. The other thing, Councilwoman Owen had mentioned about getting more feedback from people. I do know that there was a lot of people that I spoke with that did have concern about this. And unfortunately, they had said that they weren't going to come to the meeting tonight because they didn't think that there was anything they could do regarding the city. And so I just think it's nice for you guys to know that there are people out there that think that there's nothing they can do and the city's already made up their mind on these things. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And thank you for coming tonight. Other public comment. This is a public hearing on either the annexation or the zoning. You're welcome to come forward. Any other public comment? Before we close the public hearing, last call. Anybody coming forward? No one's standing up, so we'll close the public hearing and come back to council and first address, we'll address the annexation. Council member Asplander.
I'd make a motion if everybody's ready to go. Having conducted a public hearing, consider written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution conditionally approving annexation 25-04 as recommended by staff.
Motion made for approval, second by Councilmember Tidswell. For approval, annexation per the staff report. Would either of you like to speak to your motion, and also Councilmember Boyette?
Yeah, these questions are forever, they're not new. They'll forever be there about what comes first, development or public services. Nobody is wrong questioning whether we have the capacity to serve our growing city. I think we're all well aware of that. At the same time, development is the only way that we grow our tax base without a sales tax in place in Montana. And so the only way that we can continue to grow as a city and build new fire stations and add more police, build new schools is through development and increasing the taxable value of these ag parcels. And that creates a lot of discomfort in our growing areas of the city. And it is what it is. It's not fun. It's not comfortable, but it's the reality for every city in Montana. And until we change our tax structure at the state level, which we have no skin in that game, we don't have any voice in that. You know, we're going to have to continue to operate in this fashion. So, I understand the discomfort with development. At the same time, it is the only way that we increase our tax base to afford the services that we need to continue to expand and grow in our city. And so I don't have any good answers. I can empathize with the neighborhood. I mean, I live north of 80 acres that's developing right now, and it's the same thing, but it's the only way that for our city to move forward. So I'll support this, and I'll continue to support, you know, economic investment in our community.
Very good. Thank you. Councilor Tidswell. Thank you, Councilor Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Wyatt, can we work out something with this 20 feet to make it, I like the idea of the 10-foot buffer with the trees and the grass. I mean, that's a wonderful, is there something we can do so that this 20-foot joke doesn't sit there? I mean, to me, it's a waste.
And on Councilmember Boyd, I'll just make the technical point, although I'm going to allow that question and Wyeth. Technically, we're just on the annexation, and that's a part of the zoning requirement. But theoretically, it could impact your vote on the annexation. So I'm going to ask Wyeth to comment.
So Councilmember Boyette, Mayor and Council, we are trying to sort this out right now out in the hall. So we're actually, there may be more to it than what we thought. So yeah, we're going to have to follow up here in a couple minutes on the zoning piece.
So you may need to make your annexation decision without having a clear answer to that.
And then one other question that I get from the public is, I was on the zoning commission for 10 years. The 10 criteria, can we say we don't want to annex a property based on the fact that we may flood a school next door?
Councilmember Boyette and Mayor and Council, so want to be clear here. So when you're considering annexation of a property, the current state law is extremely broad in terms of the city's decision of whether to annex a property or not. There are not the 10 criteria. There are not the subdivision criteria and the subdivision regs. Those are different. So when you're deciding on annexation, it's more open and broad. I'm not saying that you just, come up with whatever, but at the same time, it doesn't specify those things in there. When you're talking about zoning, yes, you have criteria. They talk about schools as one of the items and one of the criteria. And when you talk about in subdivision, schools are also mentioned. I can tell you that specifically in the subdivision regulations, you cannot not approve a subdivision solely based on school impact. It is mentioned as one of the criteria in the zoning. It doesn't have that same language, but it's one of 10 of the criteria. So schools are in both of those.
Thank you very much. Further comments, Councilmember Goins, Councilmember Neese?
In the interest of filibustering while staff out there try to figure this out, I just want to highlight that I think some of these traffic and planning concerns are real, which is why I'm looking forward to the conversation we're going to have a little bit later tonight on an initiative to change the way that we do traffic analysis to look more systemically and less project-based. So I just want to put the votes that are about to happen in the context of what I think is a really important initiative by Councilmember Aspen later tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with the traffic comment as well. And, initially I was a little concerned about this, but I think that I'm going to support this annexation. I think that as City Administrator Kukulsi indicated, this is really close to a fire station. We've approved, unfortunately, areas much farther away that we maybe should have voted no on because they're too far away outside of our service areas. This is a perfect spot to develop. I hope other developers see the areas around this thing. It's closer. I'd like to see some land a little farther in, closer to the city developed and brought to us, but that's going to be the developers that do that. So I will support this. I did have a question for Wyeth though, because I think the development agreement wasn't here. This has got the standard forever SID requirement or SID waiver, correct, in it? The
You're talking about for
the annexation waiver?
For the annexation?
Yeah.
The way because this is anticipating the subdivision requirement, it does not have I'm correct, right?
No.
It does not have that in this because they're going to execute it through the subdivision.
The subdivision waivers are only good for 20 years.
Correct.
And so I think I'm going to maybe change my support on this because I think we have to make sure we have the waiver. It is in there.
It'd be very unusual if there were not an annexation waiver. What?
Okay.
Why would that not be the case?
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Owen corrected me. It is in there, so.
Okay.
Unless I'm misreading, excuse me, Mayor, unless I'm misreading the resolution that was presented to us, the conditional approval includes a waiver of right to protest the creation of special improvement districts.
Okay,
Yes.
because it's tied then to the, to the SIA.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
The
that's correct.
annexation. Okay, good. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah. If it wasn't before, it is now. Okay, so. Okay, other discussion on the motion. Motions for approval of item 4A. Okay, then I'll jump in. I'm going to tell you why I think this is a great project and why I'm going to vote against it. It's a great project. I mean, this is just what we need in the West End. This is what we expected. Yes, there are growth problems. I would just comment on the cost of service study I mentioned before. That's been something we've talked about for 8 years. I've given up on that. It just isn't going to happen. And that's too bad. Maybe someday, but our staff is too underfunded to do that in the planning department. So we don't have a way to answer those fundamental questions of what's the cost benefit ratio between new tax revenue and cost. And people get political about whether they think it pays for itself or it doesn't pay for itself, but we do not have a data point to address that. It's a tough question, and I still think we should come back to it, but I think we need to be realistic and say that is just not going to happen unless something fundamental changes. But that's not, the other thing I want to mention is about the waivers. I'm glad Councilmember Neese brought it up. I'll just raise a point I've raised before, which is kind of a legal question. We have two sets of waivers. We have the annexation, which does not have an expiration date, and then we have a subdivision waiver that is 20-year expiration. And I have two concerns about that. One is we really need to have staff come back with a chart showing now that we've been adopting the 20-year expiration waivers for about 10 years or more, we're now coming up to the point where we're going to start having those expire. And if we're going to create SIDs, we need to have plenty of notice to do that, or we're going to go beyond those expiration dates. And we need to have a clear chart of where those apply and don't, and look at those properties. The other concern I have is that because typically the subdivision waiver comes later than the original annexation waiver, there's a basic principle of law that, boy, if you're having two agreements and they deal with the same thing, the later one controls the former one. So I'm very concerned that we will get an argument that, oh, you replaced the annexation waiver without a time limit with the subdivision waiver with a time limit. And so I've proposed to the city attorney's office and planning that our language just say that's not our intent, and then we'll be fine. But I think the language of our waiver agreements need to be changed to make that very clear, because that isn't our intent, and I'm stating that on the record in this case. There is no intention, if there's a later subdivision waiver, that have that replace this annexation waiver without a time limit. And then lastly, though, why I will vote against this is as a matter of principle. Rick Luthold made reference to it, or for anybody who is not familiar with this, for a number of years, I've been trying to point our attention to the now 23-year-old Cottonwood Park development agreement that requires that the city have a negotiation with properties before they are annexed into the property, or into the city, within 1.5 miles of Cottonwood Park, about a potential contribution to develop that large 40-acre parcel, because we don't have a good mechanism otherwise. And for 23 years, we've pretty well ignored it, despite my pleas. And so as a matter of principle, I think and I appreciate recent efforts in the last couple of weeks between city staff and the developer to address this issue. I feel the developer's frustration that this has been kind of popped on them, but it's something that has been well known, I think relatively well known in the development community in that area now for several decades. So as a matter of principle, I will vote against the annexation on that grounds, but again, it's not because of any fundamental flaw that I see in this development. So with that, any other comments before we go to a vote? Okay, so the motion is for approval of item 4A. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
If voting in opposition, please say nay. Nay. I think I lost that one. Motion is approved 10-1 with myself being the only vote in opposition. We'll now move on to item 4B, the zone change. Councilor Rathmeyer.
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken testimony, I move to approve first reading for zone change 1070 and adopt the findings of the 10 review criteria as recommended by the Zoning Commission.
Councilor Rathmeyer on the motion, Councilor Tidswell again on the second. Would either of you like to speak to your motion? No, and Councilor Tidswell, no. Further discussion now, and staff, we are going to ask for some clarification, I'm sure, on that 20-foot strip. The staff is still in the hallway. It is about 7:30, Council. I don't know, we're either going to take a break now and come back to this, or we'll press ahead. Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. I think in the past, we've actually done some zone changes and then approved different zones, because this is a zone change hearing, and so anything can happen during a zone change hearing. So I'm prepared to make an amendment to the motion to have the P1 converted or approved as CMU1, along with the recommended buffer zoning that the applicant showed us on there with just the trees. I think a 10-foot
okay,
buffer with trees.
Councilor Neese, before you make that motion, I appreciate you signaling that. Why don't we just ask staff that have been huddling a little bit to comment? If we may we do that?
Yeah, I'm probably still going to make the motion, but go ahead.
Fine. I just want to give staff an opportunity. If you'd like to comment, you heard Councilor Neese indicate a inclination to, if possible, make a motion to substitute the 20-foot trail strip for a 10-foot buffer landscaping strip. Anna.
Mayor, Council, nice to see you all again. Right now, we cannot change the current application due to the way that state law outlines this. We would have to renotice the public regarding the buffer zone. And so that's what I was talking, or the P1 that's right there. So we have to renotice regarding that. And I was just talking to the applicant. Staff has made a mistake. Their way that they wanted to have the layout with the CMU1 going to the border, there is an incorrect process that we made. So the way we're going to fix this is we'd like to proceed, and I can defer to the applicant, we'd like to proceed with the current application as it is. We are going to waive as a division to make this correct, the fee associated with the zone change, but we have to go with the zone change, and that would require a new public notice anyway. So the best way that we can correct this going forward is to just process a separate application only for the P1 little strip and have that corrected.
Very good. Thank you. Your recommendation is proceed. They'll come back at a later date. You'll waive any fees associated with that. Councilman, I want to just respect Councilmember Neese's kind of priority and then look to Councilmember Asplund.
For now, I'll defer to Councilmember Asplund.
Thank you, Councilmember Asplund.
Yeah, And a question for you. So we change a lot of things on the fly at council, from applications. We condition things. We make modifications based on recommendations. Are you telling me that this is one that we cannot just change as a matter of our motion and action as a body? That is a question for me.
So there's two factors that, I'm sorry, Councilmember Asplenlighter, Mayor and Council, there's two factors that are at play here. One is a due process issue. And so it's a matter of due process notice to the public. And because zoning cannot be conditioned, we cannot have it amended the way that it currently is without following due process noticing procedure.
Okay.
I'm not an attorney, so I'm not even going to try to argue that. It doesn't feel like we should be that restricted in our ability to act as the elected body. But I'm not interested in a legal fight over that.
Very good. Will you continue? Again, we do have a motion on the table for approval of item 4B. Councilmember Owen.
I'm a little bit interested in a legal fight about it. So Gina, do you want to weigh in here? Because I think Councilmember Asplenlighter is right. We make amendments all the time, and the public has been noticed that this parcel is up for discussion and debate, and council does have the authority to change zoning. So why are we particularly limited here?
I think that, thanks for the question, Councilmember Owen. I think that this question has come up repeatedly in the past, and I can hear Nicole Cromwell's voice in my head telling you that you can't change. The zone changes have to be properly noticed up. And we did, City Council did amend the code couple years ago. I could probably tell you here, but in section 27-1628, where it addresses zone changes and it addresses city council action and specifically what you can do at this point. And previously, your options were to approve, deny, allow withdrawal, or delay the application. And when similar issues have come up, it was finally determined to add another option for you, which is to refer the application back to the zoning commission so that it could then be properly noticed, and then you could go through this and make some modifications, or they could change applications, or whatever the case may be. But I would agree with what Anna has said, and there are procedural issues here that do not allow for you to change zoning at this point.
Councilor Asplenlighter? Or I'm sorry, Councilor Owen, anything else to follow?
I'll reserve the right to come back. I need to just think about that for a
Thank
second.
you, Councilor Asplenlighter.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this anymore. I mean, if we're going to work through it and I have to go through the hearing process, and I understand we're going to waive the fee, but that doesn't waive the charge that the developer is going to pay to the consultant to represent them at all along the process. I mean, that's an economic impact that we just put on them because we made that mistake. And they're going to have to show up back here again, even though it's a formality to go through this process again. And that's where my frustration comes with some of the things that we've been going through lately. I'm a little frustrated that, we have an interim planning commission, and they've canceled the last two meetings. And I think a lot of us in the development community would argue that this PUD process was well intended in recode to prevent a bunch of zone change applications, and it was supposed to streamline things, and it was supposed to provide predictability. And the reality is that it is so restrictive, and it is so dialed in and so to the point that it's so far ahead of what a developer can predict that we end up with more zone changes than we had before. And I would argue, in my experience in the consulting world, that it's worse than it was before, and that it's broken, actually. And so it's frustrating to me that the interim planning commission is canceling meetings because they don't have anything to talk about, when I think if prompted by the development community and the consultants that work there, we could give you a whole host of things that we think are wrong with our zoning code right now that should be addressed. And we're not being prompted for that kind of input. And that's the relationship that I would hope we would continue to build, and they would be facilitated by the department asking these questions and asking for input and looking for the ways that, from a developer's perspective, this could be better. And that's not really happening. We have to come and complain about the process or provide variances to the things that we don't like about the process and go through all this, but it doesn't feel like we're making the changes.
Just a reminder, we've got a motion before us. We should stick to that. So
I think this all applies.
okay,
But thanks.
well, we'll move ahead then. Further discussion then on the motion. Anybody who has not commented? Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you. I
And
agree we're moving a little bit off of the motion, but I did just want to respond to that to say that, to remind, not council, because council knows this, but we have an underfunded planning department who just does not have the funds to do a lot of this work that we're asking them to do. Saying, proactively look at the zone. Yes, it's a great idea. Yes, absolutely. We should be doing that. But council has to figure, and it's going to be very difficult, but I think we've got to take some responsibility for, if that department is underfunded, we cannot continue to heap more on them. So that's all I'm going to
And
say.
you're right.
I'm
It is
off,
beyond
I'm
the
off
motion, so-
Yes, beyond the scope, but
We'll move
I
back.
felt like that needed just a response.
Very good. Councilmember Neese, now on the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. In light of what Gene is advising us, this must have been under the old code. I know we have had hearings where we changed the zoning, but obviously it was under the prior recode, if I recall. So I won't make the motion, but I agree with Councilmember Aspenleiter on this, that this should be something within our preview to do. And so I'm going to ask that the staff consider making that change, adding one more thing. If we have to, if you want to limit a council from making those changes, then limit to a certain percentage of the change. But this is really unreasonable, in my opinion, to ask the developer to come back because of some issue within our code that should have been taken care of long before it got to here. And it was delayed last week, and now it's going to be delayed again, because I don't think they can put stuff in the ground knowing that they may get moved over 5 or 10 feet or whatever it may be. So I'll vote for this, but I'm disappointed that we've got this kind of issue with it now.
Very good. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, again, the motion is for approval of item 4B, consistent with the staff report, which has been a matter of public record here for a week or two, that includes that 20-foot strip, but stay tuned for possible future developments on that. Okay, if the motion is clear, then if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion, no nays, motion passes unanimously. Move on to item 4C. Councilmember Owen, you had
May I
something?
ask a question before we move on to that item? So procedurally, I just want to get a little clarity here, because Anna, what I heard you talk about was a second zone change that they would have to go through, which is not a quick process. But when developers presented, they presented the issue as a variance. And the variance, I think, can go through the Board of Adjustments and perhaps more quickly. So what is the posture that we're actually in here? Does this have to come back, or can it go through an administrative process as a variance if we waive the fees more expeditiously?
So it has to go through, Councilmember Owen, Mayor, Council, it has to go through a zone change because it is designated as the P1 zoning. It cannot go to the Board of Adjustments. What we can do is we could have council initiate the zone map amendment, because that is a right that you have within the code. And then the developer's agent doesn't have to be there at all. And we as a division can carry the map amendment on behalf of the developer and take it that way as well. So that is another option that I was thinking of.
And are you concerned that if we did that tonight, we would not meet notice requirements?
We would have to still notice. It just would be initiated by the council themselves instead of the applicant. So it would be following the same process, just them not carrying the
So we could initiate it tonight, and then you could comply with notice and all the procedural work.
Okay. All right. Item 4C. Tony, would you please read item 4C?
Public hearing and first reading ordinance expanding the boundaries of Ward 4 to include recently annexed property in annexation 2504, lots 66A1 and 67A1 of the amended plat of lots 66A and 6667A, Sunny Cove Fruit Farm subdivision. Staff recommends approval.
Very good. There's no presentation on this item. Councilmember Tiswell?
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve the first reading ordinance expanding the boundaries of Ward 4 as recommended by staff.
Second by Councilmember Aspenleiter. Either of you like to speak to your motion? Very good. Any discussion on the motion? Oh, thank you. Yes, this is a public hearing, and the item is whether this property should be added to Ward 4. Is there any public comment? This is a public hearing. If so, please come forward. Is there any public comment on item 4C? No one's coming forward. We'll close the public hearing. Back to council. Apologies, we should have done that before getting the motion, but I don't think it has substantive error. So any discussion on the motion? Okay, if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. No council members voting in opposition, motion passes unanimously. That concludes item 4. Council, it is 7:40. Normally we take a break at 7:30. We've got 2 items left. With that, Councilmember Aspenleiter's initiative, I think that might take a while. So let's take a 5-minute break and be back here as close, no later than 7:50. It should be 9 minutes at the latest. I was used to be. council approval, and would that be something you have to come back with later, or do you just do it? And for tonight, is there anything proper? You're okay with it happening tonight? Yeah. Okay, well, let's deal with it.
He's still going.
Yeah, just straightforward and quick. Okay, if we're all back, we will get started again. Welcome back, everyone. Looks like nobody went home during the break, which is good. A little discussion up here about that item 4 and the possible future zoning change that we talked about. Councilmember Aspenleiter, do you want to address that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to initiate council-initiated zone change for the 20-foot strip alongside the CMU zoning and the previous application.
I heard lots of seconds, so Councilmember Nice, I heard. Any discussion? No? Any? Okay, we'll proceed to a vote. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Okay, so staff has the direction on that. Okay, we left off with item 5. Tony, would you read item number 5?
Item number 5, South Billings Boulevard Urban Renewal District, Water and Sewer Utility Connection Program. South Billings Urban Renewal Association Board recommends approval.
Very good. Wyeth, are you our presenter? Dick is. Oh, Dick is.
He slid in. Can I use this one? All right, I'll go. Good evening, Mayor, Council, guests that are still here, and city staff. On the south side, it's been brought to our board attention many times that there are 72 homes in our district that are not hooked up to either city water, city sewer, or a combination, but one or the other. So we would like to do something to help them. The suburban board has approved up to $5,000 per applicant to assist in the cost of hookup. The maximum TIF award would be $10,000 or a total of $50,000 annually. This would come out of our from our residential and community enhancement budget, which is at $250,000 for our fiscal year this year. It would take 1/5 or 20% of that. The suburban board would receive applications and a written bid from an approved and licensed contractor for the installation of this hookup. Property owner would pay the current system development fee, currently about $2,442. A licensed and bonded contractor approved to work in the city applies for the connection permit from the city engineering and pays the fee, currently $139. A contractor would perform the work, request an inspection, and the city would inspect the connection. The city inspector would sketch the service layout for city records, possibly a self-certification by the licensed plumber that the work was performed to code. The suburban consultant would present the documentation to the suburban board or the advisory committee, depending on the timing, for approval prior to starting the project. When completed, the suburban consultant would present the documentation to the suburban board or advisory committee for approval to release the funds to the applicant. This documentation would be sent to the City of Billings Finance Director Andy Zeller for payment. The documentation would be paid invoices, proof of approval of the city, and a certificate of satisfaction prepared by the suburban or the advisory committee consultant. These applications could be approved by the suburban board and would not require Billings City Council approval, as they have already approved the concept. Don't want to bring every $5,000 one to the city council, and we'd have annually 10 of them is what we're looking at.
If we got more than 10, which I would hope that we would, but I don't expect it, then we'd come back to make an amendment on that to get it more, if we could, on that south side. The TIF award would not pay for any of the permitting fees, just the connection work done by the approved plumber or the contractor.
Very good. Thank you, Dick. Questions for Dick? Councilmember Kennedy?
Mayor, it's not a question. It's Dick had the Sabura board meeting last week. We also on Thursday night had the expansion of Sabura. It was very positive at both of those meetings from the people in Sabura and the folks that attended the Thursday night meeting. It's something that really does need to happen, and it's a real incentive to get a lot of these folks off of the septic and onto the sewer system down there.
One thing I might add, I got this from Matt Fogelsong, most of the stuff that I wrote there. We would like to get it done and help out the south side.
Very good. Any other questions for Dick? We will not have a public hearing, so you can vary into comments as well. Councilmember Shaw, Councilmember Neese?
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion since we don't have a public hearing.
We had a request earlier from the district. Oh, well, this is your district, I guess. No, it's not.
Oh, piece of it is. Oh, I'm sorry. Did one of you want to make a motion?
Well,
totally,
yeah,
we'll
somebody from
defer.
council-
Okay,
from Ward
absolutely.
3
We'll
had
defer.
spoke up. I apologize. So is that, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Anything before we have a motion that's appropriate, that's necessary before we have a motion? Councilmember Neese, I'll let you make the judgment on that. But Councilmember Rogers
I mean, you can
requested
make a motion,
the
but I have questions for Dick.
okay, why don't you, Councilmember Rogers, just so we have something on the table, go ahead.
I move to approve the S-Bird Water and Sewer Utility Connection Program as recommended by the Sabura Board.
And Councilmember Kennedy, very good. Either you'd like to speak your motion before we turn over to Councilmember Neese?
I would just reiterate what Councilmember Kennedy said. It's been a long time coming, and it's well needed down there, and I'm happy to support this in any way possible.
Very good. Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Dick, am I correct? This is only for residential properties?
Yes, I got a list of them presented to me, and we had to look up the names of the people. We had got the addresses, and those are all residential that we're talking about today.
Okay, and if they're combination residential, commercial, do they qualify?
We'd look at it, and then I'd have to, I guess that one I could bring to the council if it was a commercial one.
I think maybe I didn't get a chance to fully read this, but nothing here says it's strictly residential. Is the board said only if they want?
I guess we would be open to the commercial as well.
So it could be commercial.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do.
No, I'm just asking. I mean, because I think the memo said residential, but I didn't see anything in these kind of outline from you saying it's going to be only.
Okay,
so it could be. It's a floating program, and it's $5,000 per ward.
Yeah.
Maximum 10,000 a year, up to 50,000.
Yeah, well, 50,000 a year, 10 awards.
50,000, okay. And what's the actual cost to get something like that
we've
done?
gotten estimates all the way from $10,000 to $15,000 to get that done, depending on what they have to do to get it to the house.
Are you recommending anything like a 50% share on this?
No, we talked about that at great length, about, we want them to have an investment in it as well, but we're hoping that this will be an incentive to, maybe we can do it, But we did cap it so we could get more people involved in it.
Yeah, I sure would like to see some kind of share. I mean, I think the programs we have approved in the past for the TIF districts that they kind of just go run with them is it has some kind of share ratio in there where they share whether it's the fencing or the signs and stuff like that. And so I'm not so sure I like this program, the at least outline of it. I mean, it's a good idea. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think I can support it without it being a shared cost. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Dick, on this, we talked at Sabura and they voted that it would be for residential.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the intent of the coming forward to the council. I would hope that we would stay with that. And if there is commercial or whatever that want to come back to the Sabura board, but that's how we sold it at the Sabura committee meeting, and that's how we talked about it at the meeting on Thursday night. So I would hope that we would stay what we had pushed forward.
I'd be more than happy to bring a commercial request to the council.
Okay, just to have some clarification on what the motion was. The motion was to approve the connection program as recommended by the Suburra Board. Councilmember Kennedy has said that was the board's recommendation. I'm looking at the staff report. The first sentence refers or says, quote, to help residential properties. So just to clarify, Councilmember Rogers, it was your motion. Councilmember Kennedy, your second. Was your intent to restrict the program to residential properties?
Yes, at this time.
Okay, so that clarifies residential only. That is what the motion is. Okay, other discussion now, Councilmember Ripsis and back to Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Dick, I'm just curious, do you actually have indications from these property owners that they will actually take advantage of this? Like, is this going to be enough of incentive to actually make it happen? Because they're still going to be on the hook, like the $5,000, between the water and the sewer, system development fees, that's another 5,000 plus whatever over and above on the construction cost.
I haven't had a lot. No, I've had a couple is all. But the board wanted to try to do something for the residential areas down there and give a chance. If this passes, I've got all the addresses, and we'll send a letter out to all of them, let them know that it's there, so that it's available to them, and hopefully we'll get some applicants out of it. I don't think we're losing a lot if we don't, but I would hope we'd get some.
So thank you. I think we should, and hopefully there are people that take advantage of it. But we might want to think about time bounding this, so that it doesn't just go on forever and ever, and people can just, it should be a 3 to 5 year program, and this is your opportunity to get, a subsidy from Suburra to do this. And then otherwise, if you don't take advantage of it, you're gonna have to bear the full cost of it.
Well, it would be timed out because we're doing it tied to this year's capital improvement, our budget. We have 250,000 set in that. So
if we don't get 10 this year, maybe there is no next year.
Maybe there is no next year.
All right, thank you.
Very good, Councilor Ripsis.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Councilman Warren pointed out there is actually some cost share in there with the program. So I apologize. It's about a 34% share. So that's fine. I understand that. So thank you and appreciate there being a share. And I missed your comment on that.
No problem.
Very good. Any further discussion before we proceed to a vote on the motion? Okay, the motion is for approval consistent with the staff recommendation in your packet. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That concludes item 5. We'll move on to public comment on non-agenda items, things that were not on our agenda tonight. If there's any comment, please feel free to come to the podium. Just ask you to tell us your name and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment on things not on our agenda tonight? Any public comment on items not on our agenda tonight? Mr. Clark.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, my name is Paul Clark. I live on the south side, Ward 1. Again, I'm going to come back to the beautiful, and you guys are doing great. It's a very long process, especially when you're trying to get zoning to come in. It seems like it would be a no-brainer. Oops, 20 feet. Skip that, let's go on. But we can't do that because of the steps we've taken in the 23 years of time and how far the sugar beets have not grown and more people are there. One of the things that I don't hear about is parks. And it seems like I even had to ask the man, where's this Cottonwood Park at? I don't know of this development. So again, let's not forget, when the people live in these areas, I'm fortunate. I have South Park. It's beautiful. I love it there. If I want to go and relax, I walk in the park. If I live in a development where there isn't any parks, and the only thing you have is people doing 45 miles an hour down Grand Avenue to get home or try to pull out, there's no relax point. Now you can make things a trail on a 20-foot wide variance, of course. But these are small things you've got to think about with the developers when they come in with the 54-acre property. Hey, it's not that hard to make 10 acres, 5-acre park for kids, for grandparents, to walk your dog, to go visit the neighbor. That's one. Okay, the other one is we have to keep bringing it up with the state. Again, it bounces off of the city of Billings, bounces off the state, bounces off Burlington Northern about the underpass and the beautiful smell that they left us with this water that is not being drained out. I don't even think there's turtles in there. It's such bad water. It stinks, you guys. Now, I know Mr. Nelson was here last week with me and said, let's move on with that idea. But if I keep bringing it up to you guys, we still got to issue it. We have to do something with this stinky water. Thank you that it's not draining down in the well or in the South Street underpass like it used to. Every time we got half an inch of rain, there was 2 feet of water. Thank you for pulling it out of there at least, but we're not done. I don't care if we put a, welcome to the City of Billings monument with a water flow, get the water to circulate. Right now it's just stagnant water. It's not being done with anything. So again, I'll bring that up. I'll keep bringing it up to you. Maybe I'll get tired, but now I'm down to 20 seconds. The other thing is the sugar factory, the Western Sugar. I know we've gone in there with the Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Quality. We've fined them. Nothing happens. They pay the money out of Denver. It goes away. We just keep sweeping it under the rug. That is a very bad site, and you want to put an animal shelter right behind it. The ground is bad. The water is bad. We got to come up with something different. Perhaps a pre-existing building with 25,000 square foot, namely Costco. Somewhere there's a building here in Billings that's already done. How hard is it to do that? Now, I'm not a donor. I don't have Wilson Park to donate to the Billings. To do that, I get it. I understand that. But there's already other people and other places to go besides trying to build an animal shelter on a contaminated site. It's bad. Take pictures of people's homes when they water the yard. It's brown and the grass is green. My chickens drink the water. I've drank the water, but I don't know what's in that water. Now I'm trying to find out from someone in the city, and I was here today, and I got 4 to 5 different locations about who to ask. I guess I need to go and get a request form to someone so I can find out who has access to what's in that water. How bad is that water? So again, you'll see me next week. I'll be here till I find out. And you guys, election, keep it positive. Don't sling mud. Be safe. Move forward. Let's all get along. Okay, blessings.
Very good. Thank you. Former Councilmember Crouch, welcome.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Reverend Kenneth Crouch, 1642 Wembley Place. Thank you for acknowledging Indigenous Peoples Day and not Christopher's Day. Thank you for, as I read it, if you're running for office, it has to be 2 consecutive terms and not one and skip a few years and come back in. If I'm wrong, I read the material mistakenly. I ought to be talking about the NDO because I hear people talking about it. Why is Billings, why don't you have one yet? I thought they had one, and other cities have been doing it without any discussion, let alone going to 6 in the morning. But that's not what I'm here for. We'll go to another council meeting for that. Thank you for the council members that are ending your tenure, and we'll thank you for what you've done, accomplished. Now, why I'm here is that there's 4 or 5 groups, some are small, some are larger, that are concerned about members of the ICE coming to town. I understand they're here and that they've already, as I have heard, picked up 2 people. But these people are concerned, we are all concerned about what they're doing and what they do with the people that are members of our community. We know that the Yellowstone County Commissioner said, hey, you can't use the arena, so we know that they're in conversation with them. Is ICE in conversation with you at any space? Are they asking questions or just here and think they can do whatever they want to and not realize that in some respects they are guests? I'm a member of a large clergy group, religious leaders who say we have signals that if there's something happening, we want some of our people to be there, take pictures, and be supportive to anybody that's being arrested and seeing how they are being arrested. There's been a lot of violence in the other parts of the country, and we've heard of some cities saying, hey, we're taking you to court. There are some things you can't do, and Chicago says, you got to stay out of town. Well, as we talked about it, I'm a member of the clergy group. What do we expect from ICE? Have you talked about it? Is it something that's not important? Well, we have some things that we thought would be good to at least discuss. No masks. Our enforcement people don't wear masks except if there's a poison gas or something. Present their ID, read their rights. No entry into schools or houses of worship or federal buildings where they're going in to do something legally that they're required to do. No entry into homes without a permit, without a warrant. No entry into places of business. Treat our citizens and their property with respect. Limit yourselves to truly violent offenders, the criminals that you're supposed to be taking care of. Working closely and coordinating with our police and sheriff enforcement people. Let them help you find the people that ought to be a part of your agenda, and to allow visits with religious and family. Don't take them out of town hidden during the night, which is such a violation of human dignity. I don't know that they would even, if they'd just laugh at these things, but we ought to have some kind of responsibility, do you think? I leave these with you and trust that.
Very good. Yeah, just give them to Chris or to Gina, and they can circulate them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Reverend Crouch. Any other public comment on items not on our agenda this evening? Any other public comment? No one's coming forward. So Wyeth, I assume you are not here as a member of the public to give comment, and I can close the public comment period. Okay, close. Wyeth?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to really briefly, I won't take up much time. I just wanted to follow up two things really quickly that this seemed like the only spot in the agenda to mention. So first, appreciate the work and the patience and everything tonight. Apologize very much for that, for the zoning issues and the challenges we had there. We're going to go back and we have a lot of work to figure out there. So appreciate how it was handled and that we can move forward, but not the way we would like these things to come forward ever. Secondly, just wanted to clarify, Councilmember Aspenleiter had mentioned the IPC and zoning code amendments and such. Just to clarify that, so the IPC, the Interim Planning Commission, their real function right now at this point in their life is working forward with implementation of the MLUPA, the Montana Land Use Planning Act, and the process we're going through. Absolutely correct that when we get into the spring here, we're going to be looking at zoning code and subdivision amendments because of what comes out of the larger land use effort that that's underway at this time. So we are going to be looking at those things. IPC they'll be making recommendations to you to that level. But I wanted to mention, so a couple of the meetings when we haven't had them, they haven't had action to address on the larger effort where we're collecting the information from the community right now. But we are hearing from folks all the time about code issues, and we are totally open to hearing from anyone at any time. It can be our zoning commission, our planning board, it can be staff. We just actually were working with a property owner and business owner in town on a code issue that we're going to have to look at in the spring regarding food trucks. We have a list, I don't even know how long it is right now, of code amendments, both from staff and from the community. So absolutely just wanted to reiterate, open at any time to hear concerns. We have our Home Builders Association monthly meeting as well, but it doesn't have to be that. It can just be something that's brought up. So please, if you hear something or you're talking to someone and they want to share that, we're not trying to do them one off at a time. We have no capacity, obviously, to do that right now, but we are going to have a collection of items in the spring that are going to need to be addressed. So,
Very
thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Okay, last item up is our council initiatives on our agenda. Tony, I guess would you read the council initiative item?
Subdivision and Development Traffic Impact Study Requirement Modifications and Impact Fees by Councilmember Aspenleiter.
Very good, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Aspenleiter. Just as a reminder, council, you received a copy of his proposed initiative form as well as an email with some background on Friday, September 26. If you're looking for that email. Councilmember Aspenleiter, you want to take it away?
Yeah, this is something we've talked about, and impact fees were talked about in association along with fire and police impact fees. And we talked about it when we adopted the budget. I think Councilmember Neese has brought this up at various points in my 2 years here and before I got on council, that we've got to look at different ways to make sure that as we're building out our community, we're addressing these issues properly. I've had conversations with our public works staff for 2 years about the way we do traffic studies, the one-off nature in which they're completed, not coordinating with the development going on directly next to it, not necessarily accessing this supposed big network of information and data that we have inside Public Works, Engineering Department. And then what comes out of this is an impact fee on an intersection. And so a developer makes an impact fee contribution in the subdivision improvements agreement, and it gets tied and it sits on that intersection, and it can't be moved and it can't be used on anything other than the impact that they theoretically create on that impact or on that intersection. We have, I believe, 6 or 8 months ago, I got the spreadsheet from Debbie as to where all of the contributions are and what has been made over time and what is still sitting in the bank. And it's, I think it, if I remember correctly, it's close to $2 million in impact fees sitting in a bank that are not tied to projects that are directly programmed or scheduled to go. I point to the development on Zimmerman Trail, the Zimmerman Home Place development. I think we made a $10,000 contribution to the intersection of Colton Boulevard and Zimmerman Trail. That will never be a lighted intersection. It does not warrant a signal. It won't ever warrant a signal. And there's already a flashing beacon there. But there's $10,000 sitting in the city's bank account tied specifically to that intersection that will sit and die on the vine, losing value every day, forever and ever, amen. That is not the best process. Staff even acknowledges that that's not the best process, but it's the process that we had, and it was an improvement when it was created way back when. I'm not interested in doing a lot of initiatives, but this has been a point of conversation with staff for years now. And it's just not going anywhere. And we're going to continue to forever chase our tail with this until we simplify this process and create a system impact fee for traffic. Get rid of these traffic studies and let our traffic engineer in the city do the traffic engineering and come up with an EDU basis for contributions to the transportation network so that we can access and use those dollars on the streets and the roads and the improvements at the time that the impact is being made, and not setting everybody up to fail. What the public sees and what the public hears when we do these traffic studies is that we're creating an impact. We certainly are when we develop in this community. But what they hear is that there's going to be an improvement made. The reality is the developer rarely makes an improvement unless it's to the intersections that they're building to access their properties. They don't go down to Grand and Zimmerman and do turn lane improvements or signal improvements. That's a city project. But what they expect is that stoplight at Avenue E at the children's clinic to be put in when the apartments start going up. That's what they hear. And so when it doesn't, and the apartment buildings go up, They're mad at everybody, as they should be, because the expectation is that the project's going to get built as a result of the development. So we set our staff up with this process to also be battling the public unnecessarily, when in reality, we need to come up with a streamlined process. I mean, we're paying anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 per traffic study per development, which is just blown soft costs. It doesn't benefit the developer, it doesn't benefit the city, and it doesn't benefit the public. That money should be paid into an impact fee on the development and rolled into actually doing work that the Public Works Department can program and put forward on improvements on our transportation network. So what I'd like to do is start a work session and put this on the priority list for Public Works to actually start working on. We can make a nod to it all we want, but until there's directive from council to start moving this, we're going to forever chase our tail and just not get there. So that's where I'm at.
And Councilor Espinola, you're initially really dealt with two parts of this problem: the timing of the traffic impact study, as well as what you were just describing. Can you address the other part?
So
and then
the timing of submittal of a traffic impact study has changed this year. Forever, we have submitted a traffic impact study at the time of preliminary plat, when we submit the plat. That's what the regulations say. And I attached that in the email that I sent out. In the checklist indicates that the traffic impact study should be done at the time of completeness and sufficiency review, which is weeks before we're ready. It's still while we're working through comments, it's still while we're working through issues with the staff and trying to address the development. To force that to be submitted early on in the process like that just sets the developer and the staff up to go through multiple iterations, because we're not there yet in the timing of how these things develop. The reality is these traffic studies live and they morph and they iterate all the way until we get to final plat approval. At final plat approval, we need to have a final approved traffic study which delineates what our impact contributions are. That's when the contract gets signed with the developer and the city. All along the way, we can indicate what we think is going to happen, and most consultants can tell you before they even start the traffic study what impacts we're going to have, what intersections are going to be impacted, and how that goes. What we've tried to propose to staff is to do a memo indicating that very thing without a completed traffic study based on those submitted by other consultants and ourselves. That was met with a no. The checklist says you have to have a traffic study, so we need a traffic study at completeness and sufficiency. What it does is it just slows the process down. It drags development out, it extends the timeline, and it's a nonsensical way to approach development because it does not need to be completed at that point in time. It's going to continue to morph, it's going to continue to change all through the process. So we've tried to propose an alternative. I didn't come to this with a problem without a solution to fight. We proposed alternatives. Those alternatives were not acceptable according to the staff. So I'm going to go back to what our regulations actually say, not what our checklist says, but what the regulations that the council approved say, which is a traffic study is due at the time of preliminary plat submittal. So we can talk about that at a work session. I just want clarification from the council that our regulations are actually what our regulations are, and that the checklist doesn't override what the actual approved regulations are. That's the other part of the conversation.
Councilor Asplighter, just for clarity purposes, would you agree that we should split these two things? And if we could try to deal with these, whatever you think the simplest one, which I suspect is the timing issue, can we deal with that one first?
Yes.
Okay. And would you like to make a motion, or at some point we're going to ask staff, what do they think of this? Do you want to hear from staff, or did you want to make a motion first?
I'll make the motion and then we can start the discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
So I move to dedicate work session time to discuss clarification within the subdivision regs that a traffic impact study is due at the time of preliminary plat submittal, not at the time of completeness and sufficiency review by planning, and to discuss implementation of a traffic impact fee system to replace the TIS requirements in our subdivision regs.
I'll second that.
Okay, so
staff can split those into 2 work sessions as they want.
Okay, but the motion is both of them, so
Yes.
we're talking about both.
Correct.
Okay, okay, so Councilmember Kennedy indicated you wanted to make the second. Okay, and is it okay if we ask staff to comment? All right, I think everybody's gonna want to hear from Wyeth and Anna if you want to. Just remember, there's 2 issues here, and just be clear for us. It's up to you, but I guess I'd still like to hear from staff if they think we shouldn't approve this. I mean, this is the initiative, so it's a motion. It requires discussion. That's the nature of this piece. So, Wyeth, feel free to comment, recognizing that if this passes, you'll have plenty of opportunity to get into the details at a work session.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. And yeah, I think the expectation, Public Works isn't here. I think we were expecting most of the discussion actually if you decided to advance this, to have a discussion at a work session. So we're probably somewhat limited because of that. I can't speak to the impact fee. I'm not even gonna speak to the impact one at all. The other one is the one that planning is more tied into, but yeah, I guess whatever you want me to do. We were expecting more of a discussion.
Okay,
later.
well, the ultimate question here is, do you think this is such a bad idea we should not approve it? Then that matters. If you think it's okay to bring on to work session, then that sort of answers our question for tonight.
Well, I guess, so again, just on the issue with the traffic impact study submittal and completeness and sufficiency review, I guess the issue we have there is that if the council believes that there's an issue in the regulations about what it specifies of when that is supposed to be submitted, then we can certainly look at changing the regs to clarify that further. My reading in the code is that it talks about very specifically in 23-302B that you submit that TIS as part of your completeness and sufficiency review at that point. So that's why we got to that issue. That's where we're at. But if there's a decision to further clarify that throughout the code, yeah, we can certainly have that discussion. But so that's the part on completeness and sufficiency. And I guess the only other thing I'll say about completeness and sufficiency in general is, and I've had conversations with some of the consultants on this as well, the whole purpose of that, and that's in state law for subdivision submittal, is to try to make sure that before the clock starts on a subdivision application, that all the materials are complete and sufficient to start that review. Because when the preliminary plat is submitted, the clock starts, and then everybody's on the hook to make sure we're following that. And so that's why you submit. There's a whole bunch of things on that that's referenced in that section that have to be submitted, and it's for that very purpose, to ensure that before it shows up at the application, that we know what we've got, and everybody, someone didn't submit their plat on a napkin, and that's not sufficient or complete. So that's the kind of thing that we're dealing with. We can talk about that more at the work session, but that's where I guess I'm at, is just trying to clarify how you want to proceed with the way it's specified.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Unless somebody had questions for him. Further discussion or questions? Councilor Shaw?
Sorry, Wyatt, I just have a quick question for you, which is how much, can you give me a ballpark of how much time it's going to take you or your staff to prepare for a work session on this? I mean, I can't imagine it's like 40 hours, but.
I guess it's going to take several of the planning staff, with me obviously, and some staff, just to go through the code and try to bring you information regarding what I'm just saying in terms of where it already says what's required. And then if there's other references, as Councilmember Raspenlighter pointed out, do we want to add something to those sections, or what do we want to do to be clear? That's totally, again, if there's, that may be a short-term thing. If there's this bigger conversation on impact fees, which is going to take, a year or whatever, then that's fine. Like, we can deal with the short term and the long term. But yeah, it's going to take our staff just some time to go through and be able to bring you in the code. Here's how it's referenced. And also looking back, we've looked back at applications in the last 2 years and like what's been submitted. So we can bring you that information. So yeah, there's some work to be done there. Absolutely.
Okay. I'm trying to get a sense of it. I also have a question for Chris when you're ready. Chris, I flagged this for you during the break. Can you please tell us how many outstanding council initiatives we have currently? I think we need to be talking about this every time one of these comes up.
We're not, we have about a half a dozen
Okay.
initiatives. And I would remind you you have goals and objectives. Keep both those things in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further discussion on the
Um,
motion?
Could I make a comment?
Of course.
Okay. So I'll say I'm trying really hard to support these initiatives on their merits, the ones that I think are merit worthy, even though I do feel like, again, we are throwing things at staff out of the blue. It feels like. I understand Councilmember Aspenleiter's been having these conversations for 2 years. There's a lot I obviously need to learn about this process to understand even how I would vote on it. So I think it makes sense to move forward for a work session. I will support it, but I'm going to continue to hammer that I do not think this is the most efficient way for us to support the city's goals and priorities. And I feel like it is changing direction of staff constantly, and I don't like that. But on its merits, I think it's a worthy discussion.
Very good. Further discussion, Councilor Kenny?
I'm going to make one comment on council initiatives. We were elected to look at different issues with the city, and the only process that we have is initiatives, and the initiative process to bring up, go to the work session, talk about it, and try to bring something back to actually make better changes in the city. And if people stop, and the first thing that always comes out, Chris, is how much staff time is it, and we can't address this. That's not what the people put us here for. They want us to look at the issues, they want us to talk about the issues, and they want us to make some changes. And so really looking at all of these issues and limiting the initiative process, I have a real tough time with that. So where I'm at is, yes, if council member wants to bring an initiative forward, we should be doing that. If it's going to take 5 hours or 50 hours or whatever of staff time, then it's up to the city administrator to figure out how that's going to do. But it's the council needs to address these issues that they're having. And they're not frivolous issues. It's things that we hear out in the community. And I'm out in the community all the time. So I am going to fight against anyone that tries to limit the initiative process.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion? Councilor Neese?
Yeah, I'll support this motion. I think this is a long time overdue. So thank you for bringing this forward. You're right. We hear so much about traffic, and it's like, I'm sorry, but you can't. Traffic is not one of our decision-making processes. It's taken care of by the system, but it's not. And so we have got this change has got to come out with a solution that is going to solve that problem where traffic is taken care of after development. So I look forward to the work session and the time involved, not just in the timing. I think, again, one of the things you brought up about that, I think the staff needs to know is, let's find a way to make the timing work for the developers, without impeding how it's going to impact what needs to be done by the city to protect the community, to make sure that it's not inhibiting development in the city. So I hope we find a solution for that, as well as I like the idea of the EDUs. That's we did this with the stormwater, and it worked out really well so far. So let's see how that works with this.
Very good. Any further discussion before we proceed to a vote? I'm just going to comment. I support the concept, actually. I started thinking about it a little bit more. And part of the problem that we have now is it's a legal issue. We're now governed when we ask a developer to contribute toward mitigating the impacts they're going to create on the street in front of them. The legal standard is a case called Dolan versus City of Tigard, Oregon. And what the Supreme Court says, yeah, you can do that as long as they're creating an impact. But when you get money from them, it has to be what's called roughly proportionate. You can't put 100% of the burden on them if they're only creating 1% of the problem. Makes sense, right? Well, the problem with that is that you get 1%. And then maybe next year you get another 1%. Now, wow, you're at 2% of a 100% problem. And you never get enough money to really go out and solve the problem. It's a contribution. You're still going to need some sort of supplementary source of funding in order to comply with that legal standard. Now, the developers may regret Councilmember Aspenlighter opening his mouth on this, because the alternative is a standard that's called the Penn Central standard, which says, well, okay, not the Dolan case, which is an exaction from a single developer. Under Penn Central, it's a much, so in what I was describing before, that Dolan standard, often the developer wins because it's in a lawsuit, because it's hard to, they're really limited there. But under a Penn Central case, where you have a standard that applies for the entire community, all developers, i.e. like an impact fee, the standard is much easier, much more protective for the city, as long as you don't deprive the developer of all the useful value of their property. As long as it's not completely arbitrary, you can do pretty much anything to the developer. And almost certainly the city is going to win in a lawsuit on that, but allows you to capture more of those dollars and not be left with this 1%, 2%, 3% problem. And so I support it, because I think that's a way to raise more money in a more predictable fashion. I'm not sure the developers are going to like it at the end of the day, but I think it does make more sense. So we can get into those details at a later time. So are we ready to vote? Okay. So if the motion is clear, if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. One more thing for staff to do. All right, very good. I think that means we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.